Welcome back to Only Talk Sports, and tonight we've got the Jimmy V Classic 2023 live reaction between the North Carolina Tar Heels and the UConn Huskies. This is a top 10 matchup, and it's for a good cause as well for the Jimmy V Classic, for cancer patients, and hoping that eventually more people will be able to be cured of cancer. It is a big deal for sure. There's been a lot of advancements. Hopefully more people will be able to be okay in that regard. It's a tough deal for sure. This is a great cause, and it's going to be a fantastic game as well. Both of these teams, they're blue bloods. People are now classifying the UConn Huskies as a blue blood after they won their 5th national title last season. In North Carolina, they've got even more than that. Both teams, like I said, in the top 10. North Carolina's been down the last couple of years compared to what they were under Roy Williams. Even though they went to the national championship game with Caleb Love shooting all those threes in that tournament, they've still been struggling. But now, you look at North Carolina back in the top 10. They got some good players and a good recruit right there. Elliot Cadeau, the freshman, he knocks in the layup right there to give Carolina the early 2-0 lead. It's in Madison Square Garden. It's the Big Apple. It's a big game. This is going to be a fantastic one to watch, I believe. Both these teams have had a great start to the year. They're both 7-1. Donovan Clingan, the 7'2" center for the Huskies, backing down Bacot. He airballs the shot, and Harrison Ingram, the Stanford transfer, with the board up the floor to Bacot for the slam dunk. 4-0, Carolina out in front. What a play right there. Bacot in his last 2 games is averaging 17.5 points and 12 boards. RJ Davis has been averaging 28 points per game in his last 3 games. So the Tar Heels, they're playing some of the best basketball that they've ever played under Hubert Davis. And they've got a 4-0 lead right now over UConn. Cam Spencer with the ball. He's the Rutgers transfer. Kicks to Alex Caravan. Inside, he misses the shot. Back out to Cam Spencer for 3, and his shot's good. UConn is on the board with a triple. It's 4-3. Tar Heels in front. 18 to go in the first half. Cam Spencer averaging 17 points per game in his last 6 games. That's really good for the Huskies. He's been a great transfer addition. Bacot down low, and he's fouled. And that's something that the Tar Heels are going to have to do a lot of in this game. They need to get to the foul line. They need to take advantage of the Huskies' physical defense and try to bang inside and get those fouls called, because UConn, like I said, they are a very physical team. They like to bang down low, and that causes a lot of fouls to be called. So if you're UConn, you have to play straight-up defense. They did not play straight-up defense there on Bacot, and he's going to be rewarded with a couple of free throws. Bacot's improved at the line this year. We'll see if it pays off during this trip. And his first free throw is good, but he really has been shooting better at the line. Bacot, earlier in his college career, really struggled at the line. He was never an awful free throw shooter, but he would usually split them. But he's been shooting much better recently. He's a preseason AP All-American. Bacot looking to improve. And yet another season of college basketball for the Tar Heels. His second free throw is up, and it is good as well. Almost didn't go in, like he was going to return to his old form and split some more free throws. But nope, he hit them both. It's 6-3. Tar Heels in front. 17:45 to go in the first half. Tristan Newton, the ECU transfer, has the ball for the Huskies. Now it's over to Solomon Ball. Cam Spencer, top of the key. UConn trying to find someone to get the ball to. Finally, they find Donovan Clingan, the 7'2" center, top of the key. He has nowhere to go. Kicks down low to Alex Caravan. What a pass. What a finish. 6-5. Not bad defense by the Tar Heels either, but just a better offensive play. Alex Caravan averaging 12-plus points in 5 of his last 7 games. Cormac Ryan in the corner. His 3's off the mark for the Tar Heels. Cormac Ryan, the deadly shooter, that transferred from Notre Dame. Tristan Newton to Cam Spencer. Spencer, top of the key, gets a ball screen from Clingan inside the paint. Spencer for 2, and the Huskies take the first lead of the game for them, 7-6. Cam Spencer has 5 points for UConn, having a good start to this one. Bacot, top of the key, looking for RJ Davis, gets it to Cadeau instead. Cadeau down the floor, kicks to Bacot with the athletic reverse, and Bacot scores. What a play, 8-7. Both teams, there's some high-flying basketball action. You knew you'd see it because both teams are very talented. Both teams are very disciplined and pretty well coached. I think more people are warming up to Hubert Davis' style of play this year that he's got going than he had last year. Dan Hurley obviously has done a fantastic job with UConn being able to get that title, giving them their 5th. Cam Spencer misses a 3 at the top of the key. RJ Davis down the floor. He shoots a 3. His shot is short. Cam Spencer with the board. I don't mind him taking that shot. He's been hot lately, but no passing. You would have liked to see RJ Davis try to get others involved. Cam Spencer down the floor. Cadeau guarding him well. Solomon Ball has it now for UConn top of the key. Down to Alex Caravan on the right wing, being guarded by Cormac Ryan. Now over to Clingan. It'd be interesting to see how UConn tries to get him involved because Bacot is a very physical defender. He's going to do a really good job trying to guard him, even though he is a lot smaller. He's only 6'10". Clingan is 7'2". So that's going to be a matchup to watch as the game progresses. Clingan kicks over for a 3. It's off the mark, and North Carolina has the board. Going down the floor is RJ Davis. Tristan Newton Garden kicks down low. And a block by Clingan. What a play by Clingan. And now UConn going back the other way. That's a fantastic play. Unbelievable. Clingan down low, and there was nothing Harrison Ingram could do. 9-8, UConn back in front, and that's going to be a problem for the Tar Heels if they let Clingan get that far in the paint. At 7'2", 280 pounds, he's virtually unguardable when he gets that low in the paint. Harrison Ingram backing him down, and he is not able to back down Caravan, and it's a turnover for the North Carolina Tar Heels. 9-8, UConn with a 1-point lead. 15-15 to go in the first. What a block right there. They're showing the replay. Bacot, he's a tall guy. Bacot is no small guy, but that was a fantastic, perfectly timed block by Donovan Clingan. Stephen Cherry, thanks for being here, says Jeffrey. Amazing how quickly Hurley changed the culture at UConn. I agree. You talk about what Jim Calhoun did at UConn, winning all those titles, making them the program that they were, kind of like a Jay Wright at Villanova, very key and the centerpiece of the program. Then, unfortunately, he got sick. That was very tough for UConn. And then Kevin Ollie came in, and he was able to win that one title, but it was with Jim Calhoun's players. It was still impressive, but then Kevin Ollie couldn't keep up the steam. They were not winning, and then Dan Hurley comes in from Rhode Island, and now they're a blue blood in people's minds. I mean, all they needed was another title. A lot of people said they only won because of Calhoun. And if you look at UConn's history, before they've won the 5 titles now, they were not the same program. UConn has had many stretches of their history where they were not great. That's why when people talk about that UConn should be ahead of Indiana in the blue blood debate, Indiana has more wins. I know Indiana has been playing basketball longer, but Indiana's been better for more times of their history than UConn has. UConn's only been great the last 30 years. So that's a big, interesting, key there. When people talk about UConn being a blue blood, I think they should be in the discussion. They should be basically a blue blood. I agree with that argument for sure. But if UConn's a blue blood, then Indiana still is, but in reverse effect, where as UConn's great now, Indiana hasn't been great in a long time, but they still have the history to prove it. Stephen Cherry says Clingan's a big kid. I agree. I mean, people talk about Zach Edey, and with good reason. 7'4", over 300 pounds. He's huge, and he impacts the game in so many different ways. Even if Zach Edey's not going to be an NBA player because he doesn't have the foot speed, I think he has a shot to maybe make a team. I don't know how long he'll stick around, though, because it's going to be really tough with, so many quick guys in the NBA. Will he be able to keep up? Well, the plays, the guys run up and down the floor, he won't even be down the floor before it's already another possession. So I don't know if Zach Edey will make it in that regard. But in college basketball, he makes a big difference. Clingan, though, he's a lot quicker. 7'2", 280. I think he has an NBA future. It's going to be interesting to see how teams utilize him when he gets to the next level, but it's going to be interesting. They're showing right now most men's Division I titles. UCLA with 11, Kentucky with 8, North Carolina with 6, UConn with 5, Duke with 5, Indiana with 5, and Kansas with 4. But Kansas and Kentucky, they're always duking it out for the most all-time wins. So those are your blue bloods right there. Those 7 programs, there is no other program that's even close. Villanova has 3 titles, Michigan State with 2, but most programs do not sniff the top 7. Stephen Cherry says that's true for sure. The blue blood debate, it rages on. It's going to continue to rage on for many more years to come. UConn 61-19 and their last 2+ seasons. That's very impressive for Dan Hurley. Hassan Jara inside to Cam Spencer. What a pass. And UConn taking a 3-point lead. 11-8. Cam Spencer has 7 of those 11 points. He was a fantastic addition for the Huskies. Great move by Dan Hurley to bring him in from Rutgers. When you have a guy that's successful in a program that doesn't win as much and then he makes the jump to a better team, that's always a good move. RJ Davis, inside to Armando Bacot. He's being guarded not by Donovan Clingan, but Samson Johnson, the backup center. Inside, Seth Trimble going in on Cam Spencer. Unbelievable. That's a good play by Seth Trimble. He's a young guy, too. He's a sophomore, trying to improve this season. He definitely is playing better basketball than he did as a freshman. He's averaging 6 points per game this year, whereas he only averaged 2 points as a freshman. Cam Spencer for 3. He's off the mark there. And Ingram with the rebound, but I think they just called a foul in North Carolina. Looked like it was a clean box out, but the referees do not agree. So they're going to call a foul on that play. But Cam Spencer, I mean, he's shot heavy. He's already taken a couple threes. Hit one of them. He's missed a couple. But when you got a guy that's that good at shooting the three, sometimes you can live with him missing a couple because you know eventually those shots are going to start falling again. And even though they're not falling right now, you got to keep shooting them because eventually they will fall. It's the same thing with Cormac Ryan for North Carolina. Some games Cormac Ryan doesn't shoot the ball very well. Sometimes he does struggle, but you got to let him continue to shoot because eventually he's going to make him. He's too good of a shooter, too important for your team. Cam Spencer, Cormac Ryan, very similar players. Stephen Cherry says John Wooden's championship record at UCLA will never be touched. For sure, it was a different era. The circumstances were completely different back then when John Wooden was at UCLA versus today. There are so many good teams now. There's a lot more money involved with the sport. There's a lot more competition. It is a lot harder to win in college basketball than it was back then. Plus, the tournament's bigger. There's 68 teams now, where back then it was only like 16 or 32, something like that. So definitely John Wooden, him winning all those titles, very impressive, but it will not happen again like that. I 100% agree with you, Steven. Jeff says, I'm finally here. Thanks for being here, Jeff. We got a great game on tap. Cam Spencer, he split 2 of the 3 free throws. It was a foul on a 3. He hit 2 of them. So it's 13-10. North Carolina with a 3-point deficit right now, which it's so early in the game, it's not too big a deal. 14 to go in the first. Both teams have been playing fairly well. Harrison Ingram over to Cormac Ryan. Ryan in the lane, Ryan to the hoop, and he scores. Cormac Ryan showing that he's more than just a 3-point shooter, which he is. He can drive. He can get to the rim, which is very key when you are a 3-point shooter because that will help you get open more when they know that you're a threat off the dribble. Top of the key for the Huskies. Cam Spencer being guarded by Trimble. Over to Samson Johnson. Back to Cam Spencer. He finds Tristan Newton top of the key. Newton driving in, almost loses the basketball. Now he finds Jara. Back to Newton. 3 seconds on the shot clock. And Tristan Newton from downtown. That was like a 30-foot 3. That was an NBA 3. That was like Caitlin Clark in women's college basketball. Or Curry in the NBA. That was an unbelievable shot by Newton. But then on the other end, RJ Davis, who has been hot the last few games for the Tar Heels, continuing that hot streak. He responds with a 3 of his own. So it's 16-15, UConn over North Carolina. RJ Davis averaging an incredible 28 points per game in his last 3. You cannot expect that to continue, but that is very impressive. This game's going back and forth. North Carolina led early, but UConn has led for the last few minutes. Top of the key, Samson Johnson over to Tristan Newton. Newton driving inside in the paint with a step back over Cormac Ryan. Tristan Newton. He's one of the most improved players in college basketball the last couple years. I know he was good at ECU that last season, but talk about where he was when he first came in college basketball versus now and how I almost thought he took a charge, but they might have called a blocking foul. They did call a block. It looked like a charge almost, but they're going to call a block. They showed the replay. Yeah, I think it was a block. But still, he is one of the most improved players. Just in the fact from where he was when he first came to college versus where he is now, he probably would not have thought that he would have been playing high-level college basketball out of blue blood school like UConn and playing as well as he is. Very key to their team. Jeff says it's an awesome game so far. I agree. It's only going to get better because with games like this, as it gets into crunch time, the players step up even more. The coaches draw up plays. It's going to be a great game. I have a feeling this is going to be one of those games that goes down to the wire. Last possession. Could be wrong. I mean, sometimes these top 10 matchups do not live up to the hype, and they're either blowouts or just neither team really plays well. But so far, both teams are playing great. Stephon Castle, the number 8 prospect in the ESPN recruiting class for 2023, he's into the game for UConn. He's been banged up some this season, but he's back out there. He's a really talented player. We'll see how he impacts the game. For UConn, Bacot split the free throw, so he's 3 of 4 at the line tonight for the Tar Heels. They're down by 2, 18-16. In the corner, Hassan Jara, the Texas A&M transfer, kicks to Clingan. Top of the key, they put Samson Johnson back on the bench. Now Tristan Newton trying to drive again. He almost looks like the Penn State guard from last year. Just how he drives in, he's probing in the lane. Caravan inside. He's not able to score. North Carolina back the other way. Elliot Cadeau, top of the key, being guarded heavily by UConn, getting double teamed. Kicks out to Jalen Withers, the Louisville transfer. Inside to Bacot. Inside on Clingan, and he misses over Clingan. It's hard to score over a guy that's 5 inches taller than you. Castle over to Newton for 3. Newton shots off the mark. Bacot, he's got the rebound, but a steal. Bad pass by Bacot. Caravan in the corner. His 3 is off the mark. Inside again, UConn going up with it. Misses. Jalen Withers with the ball, and now it's out of bounds. Or did they call a foul? I can't keep up. Both these teams are battling. You love to see it, but man, it is blow for blow out there. Both teams were trying to go for the offensive rebound, and UConn's part, the defensive rebound for North Carolina, and both players ended up on the floor. They might have called a foul, but we'll see when the timeout is done. Steven says Wisconsin beat Michigan State tonight. Izzo's squad has dropped 4 already. That's crazy. When you talk about where Michigan State was at the preseason, weren't they ranked like 4th? They were in the top 10 for sure. And how they've fallen. Now they're unranked. It's crazy. Right now you got Kansas. They're up big right now, up by 15 points. Baylor's beating Seton Hall 23-13. Gonzaga's up big over Arkansas Pine Bluff. San Diego State's losing to Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon is usually a pretty tough team. Illinois, they beat Florida Atlantic earlier tonight in the Jimmy V Classic. In the first game, they won 98-89 over Florida Atlantic. I don't know if that game shows how good Illinois actually could be this year, or if Florida Atlantic, actually is a really good team and they played a really solid team in Illinois, or if Florida Atlantic isn't what they were last year. I think Florida Atlantic's pretty good, because I will say that they did drop a game earlier this season to a not-so-great team, and now they've bounced back. They got a couple decent wins, and even though they weren't able to beat Illinois, I do feel like Florida Atlantic's still really solid. Illinois getting the win. I agree with you, Steven. I do believe it's more of a big win for Illinois than a bad loss for Florida Atlantic, because Florida Atlantic, there's not that many mid-majors that are ranked. Obviously, they're ranked for what they did last year. Everybody came back. Dusty May bringing everybody back. That was very impressive. But that was a good game as well. Illinois getting the win there. Big for the Big Ten and the Fighting Illini. Not a bad loss for Florida Atlantic at all, even though that would have really helped their resume. Tennessee won. Oklahoma beat Providence. Oklahoma's in the top 20 right now. That's crazy, beating Providence there. And like you said, Steven, Wisconsin in the top 25, beating unranked Michigan State by 13. The Spartans, they're in trouble. It's way too early to say that, they're in danger of missing the tournament or anything, because you can get big wins in the Big Ten, but they definitely need to find a way to pick up some quality wins soon, especially in the rest of their non-conference slate, or it will not be good for them as they're trying to navigate the Big Ten if they want to make the tournament. Trey Sargent's here. Thanks for stopping by. Says Illinois covered my 3 points I needed, and K-State covered. Yeah, Kansas State looks pretty decent this year. Illinois, possibly one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the Big Ten. People thought Michigan State and Purdue, because of who Michigan State was bringing in through high school ranks and the returning players, and with Purdue bringing Edey back, thought they were 1 and 2 in the Big Ten. But it looks like Purdue's toward the top, even though they did lose to Northwestern and dropped out of the number 1 spot. But Michigan State struggling right now, but they normally get it together before the end of the season. We'll see. Going to be interesting. UConn split the free throws. They hit one, missed one. It's 19-16. 3-point lead for the Huskies. Number 5, UConn, and number 9, North Carolina in the Jimmy V Classic. Turnover from Cormac Ryan. What a mistake. Solomon Ball down the floor for the Huskies in the paint, and his shot goes in. 21-16, UConn up by 5. Largest lead for the Huskies. Number 3 player in the recruiting ranks. So Stephon Castle is the highest ranked player, but Solomon Ball's talented as well. North Carolina misses. UConn down the floor. Jara kicks in the corner to Alex Caravan for 3. His shot is off the mark. A putback for the Huskies. It's off the mark as well. And now North Carolina back the other way. Seth Trimble over to Elliot Cadeau inside. He has nowhere to go. Cormac Ryan almost has the ball go over and back, but he saves it at the Jimmy V Classic logo at midcourt. Now there is a stoppage in play. I don't know if there's a clock issue. I think there might be a clock issue. 10:44 to go in the first, 21-16 UConn. Jeff says, what is up with Izzo's team? They're usually solid. I mean, it is kind of shocking for sure, Jeff, that they are, a 4-loss team. But I will say that this has happened before. Michigan State started slow, and then they've turned it around. So it could happen. They've turned it around in the past when they've struggled early because they always have a tough non-con. That's what Tom Izzo likes to do to get his team ready for the rigors of the Big Ten. So I believe that he knows what he's doing. His team, I don't know if they're going to be as good as people thought in the preseason, but they still probably will be a tournament team. We'll have to see, but it is kind of strange that they've lost 4 times. I think it was a clock issue. The shot clock was at is now at 16 seconds. It was at 27, so it was not going down. North Carolina ball. Cadeau, top of the key, the talented freshman for the Tar Heels. Now you've got a jumper for North Carolina from Jalen Washington. It's off the mark. So it's 21-16 UConn. Up by 5. The Tar Heels, they need a bucket. They've been missing the last few minutes. 10:20 to go in the first. Cadeau guarding UConn heavily at the top of the key. Jara kicks inside. Over to Solomon Ball inside for 2, and his shot's good. UConn is feeling it right now. They've extended their lead to 7. Solomon Ball with 4 points. North Carolina driving into the lane, kicks in the corner to Ingram for 3. 23-19. That's a big shot for Harrison Ingram. Big shot for the Tar Heels. They needed that one to cut it to 4. UConn, I wouldn't say they were starting to run away with it, but they needed that one. They really needed that 3. You want to stay close. You do not want to fall behind by too much. Top of the key, Hassan Jara. Over for a 3, and it's way off. An air ball. North Carolina has the ball. The momentum's starting to shift. Back to the Tar Heels. They can get a bucket here. Jalen Withers in the corner, and his shot's off the mark. If that had fallen, North Carolina could have cut it to 1. UConn back the other way. Solomon Ball, the talented freshman for UConn. He has 4 points in the last couple minutes. Now Cam Spencer, the Rutgers transfer, being guarded by Cadeau. Cadeau's playing good defense for North Carolina. He's been guarding pretty well. Clingan down low. What a steal by North Carolina. RJ Davis thought about kicking inside to Jalen Washington, but there was nobody there, and there's a foul on UConn. 9:01 to go in the first. Hummus Hero says, good evening, Jeffrey and friends. Appreciate you for being here, Hummus Hero. This is going to be a good game. I'm looking forward to it. Glad and appreciative that all you guys are here so far. There's going to be a lot more basketball action to come. A whole other half and a half of this half. It's going to be a good game. Almost 30 minutes left between 2 blue blood programs. We can, I think, say UConn's a blue blood now. North Carolina, obviously a blue blood for sure. But this is a solid game. Solid matchup between both of these teams and for a great cause in the Jimmy V Classic. Cadeau, top of the key. Kicks to Harrison Ingram. The Stanford transfer over to RJ Davis, being guarded by Tristan Newton heavily. Newton, a really good defender. RJ Davis with a crossover. And that right there is experience. Tristan Newton's a fantastic on-the-ball defender. RJ Davis crossover dribble. Not as impressive as Allen Iverson, but still really impressive. 23-21. North Carolina cuts it to 2. Newton, top of the key. Kicks to Samson Johnson. They got Clingan out of the game again. Cam Spencer for 3. His shot's off the mark. Man, he's had a couple of threes that have almost gone in. They just have not stayed in the rim. Just bounced off. Caravan misses. And Ingram loses the ball out of bounds. The Tar Heels should have had a rebound. But Cadeau and Ingram were both fighting for the rebound. And they unfortunately lose the basketball out of bounds. UConn's 2 of 10 from 3, and North Carolina's 2 of 5. So both teams are kind of struggling from 3, especially UConn. But again, sometimes you got to keep chunking them up. Yeah, Ingram should have had that. I don't even think Cadeau really impacted anything. He just lost the ball out of bounds. 8:17 to go in the first half. Cam Spencer to inbound. Huskies up by 2. It was a quick 5-0 run by the Tar Heels. Newton being guarded by R.J. Davis. Paxton Wojcik, the Brown transfers guard, and Cam Spencer. Johnson on to Solomon Ball. Down low to Johnson. He almost throws it down. Samson Johnson has almost as many dunks as any other player in college basketball this year. And then on the other end, Samson Johnson with the block to make up for the missed dunk. What a play. The under 8 timeout is nigh, but that was a really good play by Samson Johnson. Not letting that missed dunk get in his head. He turns around and he blocks R.J. Davis's floater to the third row. Trey Sargent says best Big Ten player is Boo Buie. I don't think it's far-fetched, really. I mean, Zach Edey, he's going to get all the accolades. He's going to get all the headlines, obviously, for Purdue. And a lot of it's with good reason and merit. He's fantastic. But Boo Buie is an undersized player playing in a tough and physical league like the Big Ten at a program like Northwestern that doesn't win very often. They've only made 2 NCAA tournaments. So I think Boo Buie has an argument for that, Trey. I really do agree. I mean, I don't know if he's clearly the best Big Ten player, but it's very close. And he has an argument for it for sure. Especially, like I said, leading a program like Northwestern the way that he does. Hummus Hero says, I feel like Purdue's overrated, but I haven't watched enough to be certain. The problem with Purdue, Hummus, and I'm sure you know from seeing them last year, since you said you haven't seen them much this year, but it's more of the same. The problem for Purdue is they don't shoot the 3 very well. They rely on Zach Edey so much, and he gets them open looks. Zach Edey will get the ball in the block. He gets double teamed. He kicks it out to a guard, and all that guard has to do is make the shot. If Purdue had a player like Ryan Klein or Dakota Mathias, guys like that they had 5-6 years ago now, then Purdue would be almost unstoppable because then you would have an unguardable center down low that you literally have to double team basically to have any shot of, preventing them from scoring or getting fouled. And then you've got deadly shooters on the wing that don't miss hardly ever when they're open. But see, Purdue doesn't shoot the ball that well. If Braden Smith and Fletcher Loyer aren't shooting threes in a given game, no one else can really do it. Guys like Mason Gillis, they can kind of shoot threes, but they're just not a good enough three-point shooting team. So we'll have to see if they can improve in that regard. If they don't, Purdue might win a lot in the regular season, but struggle in the NCAA tournament for the 4th consecutive season. Trey Sargent says Indiana winning in the basketball big house over Michigan 28-21. That would be huge for Indiana. A lot of people don't think Indiana's good this year. They're 6-1. Their best wins over Maryland in the Big Ten opener. But other than that, they haven't really beaten anybody. They also beat Louisville, but Louisville's not fantastic this year. They lost to UConn, who's playing Carolina right now. So if they can win at Michigan, even though the Wolverines are a 4-4 team, that would be a huge win for Indiana. So definitely be interesting to see what happens there as well. I think that game's on Peacock as well. So I don't know how many people are able to watch that game. But definitely an interesting game to keep an eye on for sure. Appreciate the update, Trey. Frank, thanks for stopping by. Said, God bless Jimmy V for sure. Jimmy V, he's a legend. Jim Valvano won that NCAA title in NC State. So sad he died of cancer. His speech is legendary, and this is a fantastic cause. And it's great that they got good teams to play in these 2 games. And they do it every year. I mean, this is a fantastic matchup between North Carolina and UConn. Very high anticipated game. I'm sure that the Seton Hall Baylor game, might be pretty good for some people, especially fans of those teams. But I'm sure most people have their eyes on Carolina, UConn. Indiana, Michigan is a decent game as well if people have Peacock. But this is the game. The Jimmy V Classic. 2 blue blood programs. Inside, Armando Bacot being guarded heavily by Samson Johnson. Inside, Bacot goes up strong. His shot's off the mark, but he's fouled. Bacot, he is so good at drawing contact. So makes him very dangerous. Hummus Hero says Buckeyes point guard Bruce Thornton is one to watch, is what he says to Trey Sargent. Yeah, Bruce Thornton, I have seen him. He's gotten a lot better because I think he's a sophomore, if I'm correct. He was there last year, but he looks improved this year. ACC career double-doubles, they said Tim Duncan is 87, Ralph Sampson is 84, and Armando Bacot is 72. That's great company to be near. Tim Duncan and Ralph Sampson, two of the best. And Bacot, will he have an NBA career like Tim Duncan? Probably not. You never know. He'll have to improve in a lot of areas in the modern NBA game, because college basketball, even though it's more modern, is not as modern as the NBA. It'll be interesting to see how he adjusts there. But Bacot definitely has impacted North Carolina for the better. He has been a great player, and he hits both free throws to boot. So we're tied. 7-0 run for the Tar Heels. 23-23. Under 7:30 to go in the first. Inside to Samson Johnson, and UConn with a turnover. Good defense from North Carolina. On the weak side, help defense. They did not let that back screen work. Did not let that layup come into fruition. Very good defense. 7:20 to go in the first half. That has to make Hubert Davis happy that North Carolina is playing better defense. It's something they've struggled with since Roy Williams has retired. Harrison Ingram over to Paxton Wojcik. Download Armando Bacot on the block. Going over Samson Johnson's right shoulder, and he's off the mark. Cam Spencer with the board, and there's a foul on Paxton Wojcik. Got to appreciate the effort to try to get that rebound if you're Paxton Wojcik, but you do have to let the play go if you are not going to get the board. Can't reach in, got to save your fouls. Obviously not too big of a deal because Paxton Wojcik is a bench player, but still you do not want to get your guys in foul trouble and allow UConn to be able to start getting some free throws because you're in the bonus. Tristan Newton bringing it up the floor. Donovan Clingan's back into the game. Dan Hurley's trying to give him some rest. Newton being guarded by Harrison Ingram. That is a mismatch. Clingan back to Tristan Newton, top of the key. Nothing's happening on this possession. Under 10 to go. Cam Spencer back to Newton. 5 seconds to go. Screen from Clingan. Newton running out of real estate. Kicks the Caravan down low for the two. How in the world did Tristan Newton find Caravan in the paint? What a pass. 25-23. Newton might have a shot in the NBA if he keeps up that kind of passing. RJ Davis with a great pass of his own to Bacot. But Clingan fouled him. That has to be a foul. Clingan dropped him on the deck. Oh, Dan Hurley's mad. Dan Hurley is mad. He's saying a couple of expletives. You can see him on the screen, on the TV. He is not happy, but that's a foul, I think. I mean, Bacot might have sold it, but yeah, Clingan got him with the body. That's a foul. That is a foul. I mean, Donovan Clingan, he's a big body, so it's very tough, not to get him with the body, but he did. That was a clear foul. Maybe 30 years ago it wouldn't have been, but in the modern day college basketball, that is a foul. Bacot, though, with another miss. And that's Clingan's second foul, so he has to go to the bench. That's a win for Carolina. That is a win that Donovan Clingan is on the bench. You're probably not going to see him for the rest of the first half. That's why Dan Hurley's so mad, but Clingan shouldn't have fouled. Didn't have to. Just go up straight up defense. But it doesn't really help out the Tar Heels, though, because Bacot missed them both. He's 5 of 8 at the line tonight. He's been doing better as well. We're struggling at the line so far tonight. Still shooting 62%. But leaving points on the table for North Carolina. Newton with the ball over to Samson Johnson, the backup center for UConn. Newton over to Cam Spencer for 3. Spencer shots off the mark. Spencer's like 1 of 5 from 3. He hit his first 3, but he has not been able to make one since. RJ Davis kicks to Bacot, who has the size advantage on Johnson. His shot wildly off the mark. Bacot is not taking good shots right now. 5-on-4. Newton down the floor. Gets by Wojcik. 2-and-1. Wojcik thought it was an offensive, but they're going to call a block. How did Newton get that shot to fall, though? He took the contact, and he was nowhere near the rim. Went off glass with it. That's an NBA shot by Newton. Taking contact, yeah, that's a block because he was not set. That's an insane play. And he hits the free throw to boot. So Newton's got 8 points. It's 28-23. UConn back up by 5. The Huskies keep responding every time North Carolina goes on a little run. Newton's free throw was swish as well, so it shows you how good of a free throw shooter that he is. I mean, Newton is one of the best guards in the country, I think. I don't know if he's going to win the Bob Cousy Award, but he has definitely shown how much better of a player he is. 3 career triple-doubles, which is a Connecticut record. So he's doing a lot of big things in college basketball. Great free throw shooter, great three-point shooter. He makes difficult shots. definitely the head of the snake for the Huskies. Down the floor, Harrison Ingram hit a 2, and now UConn has the ball again. So the Tar Heels hanging in there, only down by 3. 5:10 to go in the first. It seems like there's been more scoring than this. Both teams are playing pretty good offense. But we're almost done with the first half. Seems like it's just more scoring. Newton for a tough 2. He's one of the best tough shot makers in the sport. I don't know if that's a category, but a tough shot maker is a guy that hits consistent shots that are really hard to make. And he does a lot of that. I've seen probably Tristan Newton hit at least 15 shots that are just ridiculously hard this season. Elliot Cadeau down the floor hit a pretty tough shot of his own. 30-27, 3-point game, 4:40 to go in the first. Cadeau, he's got 4 points. He's 2 of 3 from the field. He was the number 13 player in the ESPN 100 rankings. Stephon Castle for UConn was number 8. Solomon Ball was 33, but Cadeau number 13. And he reclassified as well, so he's a year younger, but he's talented. Samson Johnson, though, on the other end. Gets an alley-oop from Tristan Newton, 32-27. 4:15 to go in the first. 5-point lead for the Huskies. Samson Johnson, as a sophomore, only averaged 0.9 points per game. He's now averaging 7 points, and he's a dunk machine. RJ Davis in the mid-range. His shot's off the mark, but I think there's a foul on the floor that they're going to call on UConn. So UConn has 5 fouls. North Carolina has 4. Both teams have been fairly disciplined. That's a great pass by Tristan Newton. Effortless as well. He just alley-oop up to Samson Johnson, and now Samson Johnson has 2 fouls. But I think that Dan Hurley has to leave him in because Clingan has 2 fouls. You have to have a center in the game. Cormac Ryan with the ball. Under 4 to go in the first half. Bacot top of the key. Kicks to Cormac Ryan for 2. What a play. That shows you the improvement of Armando Bacot. He would have never made that pass a couple years ago. What a play. An NBA-level pass from a center. 32-29. 3:40 to go in the first. Dan Hurley shouting commands. He's talking a lot more than Hubert Davis is. I'll tell you that. Dan Hurley, one of those vocal coaches in the sport. Caravan for 3. His shot off the mark looked like a 3 that Cam Spencer would have taken. Just barely off the mark. They're not falling. Down the floor, and RJ Davis draws a foul on Tristan Newton. Smart play by RJ Davis. Showing you that veteran leadership. Going down the floor, taking the contact, getting to the line. Stephen Cherry says Buckeyes have the best backcourt in the Big Ten with Gale and Thornton. Well, I mean, there's not a lot of guards in the Big Ten that are really dangerous. You talk about in a lot of other leagues like the SEC and the Big 12, there's a lot of great guards. The Big Ten, it's more of a front court conference, and that's probably why the Big Ten has not won a national title since 2000. The Big Ten has just been so much more known as a center front court, small forward, power forward. It's not shooting guards and point guards. And I think if the Big Ten ever wants to get to that point, you don't want to abandon having great centers. Great centers are awesome. I mean, you look at the NBA, having guys like Embiid and Giannis and Jokic, they're very important. But they have to be able to do things like passing, like what Bacot just did. And I feel like with a guy like Zach Edey, a lot of the times the only reason he gets, any assists at all is because he's getting double teamed. He just throws it out. I think a lot of the bigs in the Big Ten just aren't as dynamic as some of the other bigs. And they don't have as many great guards. Gale and Thornton are really good, Steven. But in other conferences, that would not be the best backcourt. And Boo Booey's fantastic, but there just are not a lot of high-level guards in the Big Ten. There's a lot of good ones, but I don't know if there's a lot of great ones. So that's very interesting for sure. Hummus Hero says UConn is the most successful basketball program in the past quarter century. Can't deny. And if you didn't have that little stretch between Jim Calhoun, and when Kevin Ollie won the title to now Dan Hurley winning, I mean, it would be insane how consistently great they would have been for so long. Because UConn was down for a few years there. When Kevin Ollie took over, won the title, and they were pretty bad for a few seasons. But now they're back. And they're at the top of college basketball. They just won a title. They're a top 5 team again right now. And they're probably, for sure, a top 10 team this year. But if you look at every other team in college basketball and you compare rosters, definitely UConn has to be in the top 10 and probably the top 5. Dan Hurley has assembled a great roster. He's gotten enough of returners to really have that continuity from last year, but they also have some dynamic new players. So it's crazy. They're showing Caitlin Clark about to pass 3,000 career points. That's incredible. She's a fantastic shooter. It would be very hard to get 3,000 points in men's basketball these days with how a lot of the great players end up leaving. Bill Murray's at the game. They're showing Bill Murray, the famous actor from the 80s and 90s. He's at Madison Square Garden taking in this basketball action. And Roy Williams, obviously, he's at a lot of the North Carolina games, which is really cool to see. Eating some popcorn right now, living his best life. Did a fantastic job with the Tar Heel program, now retired. Dave Mills, appreciate you for being here. Hummus Hero says, Steven, best tandem in Columbus in quite a while, for sure. He also says, Gail reminds me of Luther Head from Illinois back in the day. Yeah, I think that those guys are only going to get better, too, because they're both sophomores. It's going to be a dynamic backcourt, especially if they do stay in Columbus for another year, and it can get even better. If one of them do go off to the NBA, that will be kind of tough for Chris Holtman, but they are a really dynamic backcourt for sure. RJ Davis is at the line. He knocks down both free throws. So this has been a consistently close game. It's 32-31, 3:29 to go in the first. They're showing the Knicks back in the 90s, all the winning that they did in the 80s as well. All those banners up in Madison Square Garden's rafters. Cam Spencer kicks to Hassan Jar, the A&M transfer, to Spencer, the Rutgers transfer, and he hits another three. That's what I'm saying right there. You just got to keep shooting them. Cam Spencer's missed his last 4 threes. He doesn't let that phase him. He's going to keep on shooting them until he hits another one. 35-31, 4-point game. Bacot down low, being guarded by Samson Johnson, who has 2 fouls. Cormac Ryan for 3. His shots off the mark. Ryan struggling to get going right now. 2:50 in the first half remains. UConn up 4. Cam Spencer, the Jimmy V Classic logo. Over to Solomon Ball. Now to Stephon Castle. Castle kicks back to Spencer. Now Samson Johnson filling in for Clingan. Kicks back to Spencer inside, and Cam Spencer's layup's good. Cam Spencer as well, just like Cormac Ryan. Great shooter, but he can also drive to the hoop as well. He's got 14 key points for the Huskies. Inside, Harrison Ingram goes up strong. His shot's off the mark, but they call a foul. Harrison Ingram is a big body. The Stanford transfer, he has a lot of talent, former 5-star recruit. If he can get it all to come together, he can improve at shooting threes, improve at passing. He could still be a pro. But he does have a lot of things he needs to work on. It just was not going to happen at Stanford. 3 of 13 from the outside for UConn, 2 of 5 for North Carolina. So it shows you that North Carolina is prioritizing more of the paint, especially when Clingan's out of the game. UConn trying to hit jump shots, even though they can't get to the rim. If I'm UConn, I would try to just get inside, get to the foul line, and then once North Carolina sags just a bit, start shooting those threes again. But UConn's so good at passing that they've been able to get a lot of their shots up anyway just by great passing. Someone's eventually going to be open. And Ingram splits the free throw. So it's 37-32. Ingram this year's averaging 14.5 points on 53% shooting from 3. So he is improving. That might turn some heads in the NBA. But he was not able to hit both free throws. North Carolina leaving points on the table. At the line, Cam Spencer over to Samson Johnson. Trying to get to Solomon Ball. Finds Hassan Jara. Jara for 3, and it's good. UConn up by 8, 40-32. This is the most separation that either team's had in this game. North Carolina needs a bucket. Cormac Ryan can't respond. Jara down the floor. 2-on-1. Jara down the floor and 1. No, it's not. I thought it was an and 1. It looked like he was fouled, but no. 42-32. UConn up by 10. Jara with 6 points, 2 of 2 from the field. North Carolina in a bit of trouble. Hubert Davis has not called a timeout because he hasn't felt it was necessary. But right now, UConn starting to pull away a little bit. North Carolina needs to get this under 10 at the half. If they fall behind by too much, it's going to be hard to come back. UConn is, I agree, Hummus here. UConn is tremendous team speed. That's a problem. That is absolutely a problem when you're talking about North Carolina, who's normally the fastest team on the floor. Ingram, though, playing bully ball down low. He scores and one. Big play right there. But UConn is one of the quickest teams I've seen. And team speed helps you win championships. Defense helps you win championships. Three-point shooting helps you win championships. And it looks like UConn has all those things in spades. I mean, they are really good. They were good last year, and Dan Hurley made the right moves again to keep this roster toward the top of the sport. They're going to be a very fun team to watch all season long, and definitely could be in the hunt for another title. Back-to-back, to be the first to do it since Florida back in 06-07. And you had Ingram miss the second free throw, but Armando Bacot, he got the offensive rebound and he slammed it home, 42-36. What a play by Bacot. It's contrasting styles right now. UConn is outrunning North Carolina, but the Tar Heels are starting to play bully ball. Jeff says this game is tight. It's been tight for the most part. UConn got a bit of separation there, but that is a fantastic play by Bacot. Did they call a technical on Bacot? I think they did. Hubert Davis is furious. He's starting to talk just as much as Dan Hurley. Hubert Davis doesn't like the call. I don't think that was a technical foul. Bacot was not trying to get in his face. I think he was just excited. He was trying to turn away, but they called a technical. These two free throws could come back to haunt the Tar Heels if this comes down to the wire at the end. Cam Spencer at both free throws. Bacot went up for the dunk. I think it's because he yelled in Samson Johnson's face, but I don't know if it was intentional. Man, that stings for North Carolina fans. They had some momentum going back in their direction. UConn up by 8 now after those two free throws. Momentum is a fleeting thing in sports, especially college basketball. What a turn of events. Alex Caravan to Cam Spencer. Ingram on him. Screen from Johnson. In the corner to Solomon Ball. Back to Spencer. Johnson looking for someone to pass the ball to. He finds Jara. 4 seconds on the shot clock. Jara kicks to Cam Spencer. His shot's off the mark, but a kick out. Look at UConn running the floor. Like Hummus said, the team speed is insane. Timeout on the floor for the Huskies. The use it or lose it timeout. Dan Hurley liking what he's seeing. Stephen Cherry says, yes, indeed, Hummus. Thornton, best point guard since Aaron Craft. Aaron Craft was great. He was always fun to watch. He played there when I was around probably 8 to 10 years old. He was a fantastic player. Very fun to watch. Very disciplined player. Got his teammates involved. Could shoot the basketball to boot as well. But definitely with Thornton, if he can get to that level, continue to improve, Ohio State might have a pretty solid team this year, maybe next year. RC, thanks for stopping by. I said Only Talk Sports. What it does, but appreciate you for being here. He also said one of Caitlin Carr's biggest fans in the building. Always good to see you. Only Talk Sport for sure. That's why you have it as the title of your YouTube channel. Appreciate that, RC, for being here. Definitely, Caitlin Carr is fantastic. Always love seeing you in the chat. Appreciate it. Trey Sargent says you take Zach Edey out of Purdue's lineup, this Strong would be a top 22. Yeah, I agree. I mean, if Zach Edey was not at Purdue, I don't even think Purdue would be a top 25 team because the rest of the roster is not there. The guard play is not good enough. Purdue's a good team, but they rely so much on the big. And that's what makes it tough when trying to evaluate them compared to other teams. I mean, I know that other teams can rely on a guy as well, but still, it's just going to be really hard to foresee Purdue going all the way or going far. A lot of people saying Final Four team, but they've been saying it for years, and Purdue always loses early. 30 seconds left. 4 seconds on the shot clock. Samson Johnson kicks to Jara. 2 seconds. 1, and his shot's an air ball. 27 seconds. That's how much time that North Carolina is going to have for one last shot to try to cut down this 8-point lead of UConn's. North Carolina's played well, but UConn has been the better team on the glass. They've been a better team shooting the jump shots. North Carolina is not getting a lot of points from the three-point line, and that might cost them in this game if they can't start hitting threes, because UConn can get hot outside quickly. You got guys like Cam Spencer, Alex Caravan, Tristan Newton. They can hit a lot of threes. North Carolina, you got Cormac Ryan, Harrison Ingram, RJ Davis, but they're not hitting the shots right now. Jeff says, go Hoosiers. Be interesting to see what happens there on Peacock between Indiana and Michigan. Hummus here says, I got Peacock for the one Buckeye football game, and then saw how much Big Ten basketball they had and decided to keep it through basketball season. It's insane how many games they put on there. Indiana-Purdue is on Peacock. The Indiana-Purdue basketball game, one of them, not both, but one of them is on Peacock. I cannot believe they actually did that. I mean, you talk about a rivalry of that magnitude, and you're going to put it on a streaming service. That's going to start happening more and more now. I mean, a lot of people do have Peacock for television shows, but I agree with you, Hummus. I mean, there's so many basketball games on Peacock that it's definitely worth getting if you love watching college basketball, which I know you do, and a lot of people do as well. I mean, it's insane. There are so many games for so many different teams. There's more basketball than there is football for sure. Jeff said, what a game. Both teams are awesome. I knew this would be a great game. That's why I definitely wanted to live stream this one. Appreciate all you guys for being here tonight. The Jimmy V Classic, top 10 battle, 2 blue blood programs. North Carolina right now down by 8 over the new blue blood in UConn. Huskies playing great ball. Cormac Ryan inbounds it to Elliot Cadeau. He's had a pretty solid first half. Played pretty good defense, but is going to have to contribute more on the offensive end to help North Carolina get back in this game. 15 seconds left. Down to 10. He needs a ball screen. He doesn't get it. Harrison Ingram gets in the lane, kicks back to Cadeau. Back to Ingram for 3. And Ingram shot's good. What a pass by Cadeau. Smart play by Ingram to pick and pop. And that's the end of the first half. The time runs out on the Huskies. And North Carolina, I would say, to only be down 5 right now, that's not too bad. Cam Spencer leads the Huskies with 16 points and a couple triples. And Bacot, he's got 11 points and 5 boards. Missed a few at the line. Could have had more points. But for the most part, UConn dominated that first half. And like I said, for North Carolina to only be down by 5, definitely not too bad. Trey Sarge had just watched that play. Good block. Got him on the hit. Absolutely a foul and clean. For sure. I mean, it was a clean block. Definitely. But if you get him that much with the body, they have to call it. I know why Dan Hurley's upset because he got his second foul, and you never want, one of your most impactful players to be in foul trouble. They definitely had to call that. There's no way in the world that it would have made sense for the refs not to call a foul there. Clearly, it was a foul. He got him in the hip big time. It's, like I said, very difficult when you're that big of a player not to foul in certain situations like that. But still, that was definitely a foul. Trace, it should have been an offensive foul on Newton. That's a push-off. Yeah, there's been a couple of missed calls, but that's college basketball for you. I've seen a lot of people say that they're not a fan of college basketball because of how bad the officiating is. And I'm like, well, there's bad officiating in other sports too. Yes, college basketball, there are some bad no calls. There are some bad calls. Some people talk about certain home environments that it's very tough to win at because of the fouls, but still, it is what it is. College basketball is still a great sport. But if the refereeing was a little better sometimes, it'd be awesome. Steven says UConn going to win the Natty again. They could. I mean, I'm looking at this team, and it's hard to say because last year's UConn team, I don't know if you guys remember, but UConn had a stretch where they lost 6 of 8 games. They were ranked high early on. They looked good, and then they had a rough skid early on in a Big East play. And they could not win a game to save their life. They even lost to St. John's, who did not make the tournament last year. And Mike Anderson got fired, but now they have Rick Pitino. But after that, UConn got it together, and they rolled through the rest of Big East play, and obviously ended up winning it all. But this year's team, they're better now than they were last year at this same time, because last year around this time is when they started hitting their skid. But will this UConn team this year get to the heights that team reached last year? That's what we're, going to have to find out. That's what's going to be determined. Plus, there's another team going to become better, like a Kansas. I mean, some of these other teams out there at the top, are they going to be able to challenge UConn and be able to knock them off? Because, I mean, sometimes you've seen a lot of people talk about in the past in certain NCAA tournaments. Well, that team was the best team, but they didn't win. So UConn You could be the best team in college basketball this year, not win at all. It's going to be interesting to see for sure. Arizona's looking really good, but is it just an early season? I'm not saying a mirage, but are they going to regress them down the stretch? Because Arizona right now is playing incredible basketball, but Arizona's been one of those teams kind of like Purdue. When they make the tournament, they struggle. So we'll see. Hummus Hero says, you're right, Jeffrey. The Big Ten has had the guards they did back in the day. I mean, Mateen Cleaves, Michael Redd, Deron Williams, D. Brown. The Big Ten used to produce great guards consistently. And D. Brown was insane. He was fantastic. Deron Williams, for sure. So many great players. I mean, the thing is that, again, in modern basketball, you have to have great guards. Centers are important, but if your best player, by far, like in Purdue's instant, is your center, and your guards are not necessarily a weak link, but they're not a strength, they're just pretty decent players, how can you expect to win a title when you're playing against teams that have great guards? Especially, I mean, you talk about Purdue losing to Fairleigh Dickinson. Fairleigh Dickinson doesn't even have any dynamic guards. Like, you talk about players that are going to be going to the NBA anyway, but they were just speedsters, small, like 6-foot guards that were quick, and they just ran circles around Purdue's guards. They might not be going pro, but they got a massive win over Purdue. I think that's the biggest problem when talking about the Boilers. Their guards just aren't quick enough. If they play a team like UConn, Purdue would really struggle. For sure. RC says, have yourself a Ballman. Appreciate that. Solomon Ball, pretty good player for UConn. Only going to get better, too. Hummus Hero says, UConn is tremendous team speed. Like I said earlier, I completely agree. Also says they will run many teams ragged, especially if they have the right matchups. If they play certain teams, like I said, Purdue or Tennessee, Indiana in the tournament again, you saw Indiana, they already played them, beat them by 20. Indiana, I don't think is a bad team, but Indiana did not have the team speed at guard. Indiana's got some decent guards, but UConn's guards ran circles around it. It didn't even keep it close. And the NCAA tournament's all about matchups anyway, as you guys well know. You talk about a lot of matchups where you thought that this team would win, and the other team won that you weren't expecting because that matchup benefited them. I've seen North Carolina play Virginia tons of times, where North Carolina's been a way better team than Tony Bennett's squad, but Virginia wins because the slow offense messes with North Carolina. They cannot crack the code. Some teams go to zone. Back in 2013, Indiana with Cody Zeller, Yogi Ferrell, they played Jim Boeheim's Syracuse team with the 2-3 zone. Indiana was favored big time, and they lost because they couldn't figure out the 2-3 zone. So certain teams do not match up well with other teams. So if UConn matches up with the right teams, if they get a team that's not necessarily great at guard play, or they just have slower guards in general that don't run the floor as much, it might be a nightmare for that team playing UConn. RC says, only talk sport. Do you think South Carolina's completely deserving to be ranked number 1 in the country? Well, I mean, it doesn't help that teams like UConn and Tennessee, other teams that normally are at the top in women's college basketball, have multiple losses right now. So I think that's probably why South Carolina is ranked number 1, because they've been the most dominant team recently. UConn and Tennessee, they've slipped a bit. South Carolina's been probably the most dominant team in the last few years. So that's probably why they're ranked number 1. RC said, I saw a Houston game on Tulsa where they can shoot it, they can cut and get open, but they're so small, man. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. Some people think you need the height as well as the speed, but Houston might just be dangerous enough just having, a small team. They might not have to be, super big to win, but we'll see. It's going to be hard in the Big 12, playing Kansas, playing Texas. We'll see how they do. I mean, I think it's remarkable in a way what Kelvin Sampson has done at that program. I mean, Houston was winning games in the American. We'll see. They haven't entered Big 12 play yet. Once the rubber meets the road and they're playing the gauntlet of the Big 12, we'll see how they do. Can Houston continue to win at a high level? Or will they drop some games that people are expecting them to win because now the competition is a lot stiffer? It's going to be interesting, but I think what Kelvin Sampson has done at Houston is definitely an impressive coaching job, because Houston's not a program that I don't really think a lot of people, really expect big things from. So that's impressive. Pat Webb, appreciate you for being here. Says wild. This game's crazy. Trey Sarnes, I'm sorry. West Virginia, Kansas, Morgantown in the games with Big 12 is like, yeah, West Virginia hasn't been good this year, but for real. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting, like I said, to see what Houston does. I mean, it's not going to be a walk in the park. Not going to be a walk in the park for them to just easily win games like they did in the American Conference. There's too many good teams in the Big 12. But if Kelvin Sampson can have them go like 12-8 or 13-7, 14-6, something like that, they'll definitely be ranked in the top 25. Pat Webb says Kentucky should be number 1. If you're talking about men's basketball, I don't really know if they have an argument for that because they did, lose a game that they should have won recently. I think they lost to UNC Wilmington. So if you're talking about men's basketball, then I don't think they really have an argument to be number 1. But maybe if they start winning, eventually they can move up the rankings. Pat Webb says UConn not a blue blood. Well, I mean, they technically are because they have 5 titles. I mean, if you want to use the titles logic that the other blue bloods, Indiana, UCLA, Kentucky, Kansas. I mean, Kansas is 4 titles, but Kansas has more wins. UConn, that's the only argument that's keeping them from being a blue blood in some people's minds is that they haven't consistently won throughout their history. It's only been the last 25 years. But if you're going off titles, then there's a big argument they're a blue blood. RC says James Madison is ranked number 17, but they haven't beat anybody. I said they haven't beaten them. Well, they did beat Michigan State, but Michigan State keeps losing. It's kind of one of those deals. When James Madison beat Michigan State, they were ranked number 4 in the country in the first game of the year. That's why preseason polls shouldn't matter. People take way too much account to preseason polls. No one knows how good a team's going to be until they play. Look at North Carolina. They were ranked the preseason number 1 team last year, and then they just started losing. And then they ended up being unranked, and they missed the tournament. Michigan State was ranked 4th. When James Madison beat them, that was an impressive win because they beat a top 5 team. But Michigan State has shown themselves to not be a top 5 team. They're not even ranked right now. They've lost 4 games. So, yes, it makes that James Madison win over Michigan State not look as good. But at the time, it did. And since the AP voters have already ranked them, that's why they are currently ranked. And they're probably going to stay ranked unless they finally do lose to a team that in their own league, that a team that's not very good. So do I think James Madison is one of the 25 best teams in college basketball? Probably not. But I don't think Liberty or SMU is one of the top 25 best teams in college football either, and they're ranked. It's all about who you play. As long as you keep winning, then that's the way that it goes. But I agree with you, RC. They haven't really played anybody, outside of Michigan State, now that the Michigan State win's been devalued. But that's why they are ranked, because that was an impressive win at the time, and they've continued to win since. RC says, only Tall Sports, what's Elliot Cadeau doing out there for UNC? So I'm guessing you're saying he's not really doing that much. Expecting more from him. If that's the case, I get that. I mean, he's a star freshman, but the only issue is that he did reclassify. And reclassifying is hard. I think a lot of people, when you talk about guys like Elliot Cadeau and they're so highly rated, and then they reclassify, people are just expecting that they're going to be good anyway, even though they reclassify. It's like, well, they're a top recruit. They're going to be able to acclimate to the college game just fine. And sometimes they do, but a lot of guys don't. And I think Elliot Cadeau's been fine. I mean, I was, thinking possibly he would be scoring a bit more than he is right now, but he is starting and he's playing next to a really dynamic guard in RJ Davis. So he's not really being asked to have to do as much of the scoring load because RJ Davis is providing so much of the scoring punch. But if Carolina is going to be able to win this game, they might need a bit more out of Elliot Cadeau, and he is definitely capable. So we'll have to see. It's going to be really interesting to see how he improves throughout the season. But I do believe that more guys like Elliot Cadeau should avoid reclassifying, because staying in high school and getting all the experience that you can get, in the level that you're supposed to be in at the time is good. Now, some people did say Elliot Cadeau was older than the rest of his grade. So he technically, in a way, him reclassifying, he kind of didn't reclassify because he kind of should already be in college basketball. I have seen some people say that, but again, he's still, being a guard is on the smaller side. It's a little bit different when you're like a forward. I think centers and point guards is tougher to reclassify Because centers, you're trying to figure out how to not do illegal screens. You're trying to figure out how to, especially if you're not like your weight's not where it should be. You have to bulk up and get ready, especially if you're going to be in the Big Ten and be able to bang with the rest of the bigs in the conference. Or, if you're a guard, you have to be able to guard other teams' best guards. It's tough. If you're like a small forward and you reclassify, I don't think that's as hard. I feel like more point guards and more centers, they should stay in high school until, it's their time to make the jump into college basketball. RC, so that Georgetown and TCU game was crazy. Only tell us where Georgetown got robbed. Yeah, it's interesting for sure. A lot of great games on every single night. A lot of games people are missing because they're paying attention to the NBA. They're paying attention to, college football, what's going on there as well. But Georgetown, TCU, really good basketball game. Appreciate that. RC says as well, you're right. It's laughable. UConn is still ranked women's college basketball at number 17 with a 4-3 record. They absolutely should not be ranked. Yeah, for sure. That's the way it works. I mean, people talked about Tennessee this year. In football, they were 8-4, but they didn't really beat anybody that good. And they got smoked in a couple of games, like, in the second half against Alabama. Missouri trucked them 36-7. They lost to Florida. But, yeah, I mean, you got a point, RC. I mean, when you talk about a team like UConn and women's basketball that has all that history, and Tennessee, they've got a few losses as well, and they're still ranked. I don't know if they're ranked this week, but they were ranked last week, and they had like 2 or 3 losses. So, for sure, it's one of those things where it is biased toward a team that is rich history. And I don't blame the voters for feeling that way. It's like it's UConn. They're like the pinnacle of women's college basketball. But at 4-3, they have not looked like a top team. I think one of their guards did get injured, which stinks. Kind of like how Paige Buckers got injured the year before, but another guard for them got hurt this year. But, yeah, it's just the way it works. If you have that history, they're going to keep you ranked longer than if you're just a team that normally isn't there. Jackson says, what's up, Only Talk Sports Nation? Appreciate you for being here, Jackson. Appreciate everybody else for being here. We got a great game. We're talking about a lot of other games going on, but we've got a great game right here. The Jimmy V Classic, UConn, North Carolina, 44-39 at the half. The Tar Heels early on had a lead, and they were looking pretty good, and they didn't play bad in the first half, but UConn definitely played better. Their team speed was a problem for the Tar Heels, and usually North Carolina, they're usually the quickest team, one of the quickest in college basketball, but UConn, guys like Tristan Newton, Cam Spencer has sneaky speed. So there's a lot of guys for UConn that are dangerous, that are going to make them possibly a title contender yet again this season. There's a few teams you can point to: Arizona, Kansas, a lot of good-looking teams this year in college basketball. But UConn definitely in that conversation. And if they could win, they would be the first team since Florida to win back-to-back. And there was a good game on earlier in the Jimmy V Classic. Florida Atlantic and Illinois, and the Fighting Illini got a big win over the Florida Atlantic Owls, 98-89. That was a really good game. And now you've got the Blue Blood Battle, top 10 matchup on ESPN, headliner of the night, headliner of the week. I don't think there's that many big games on the rest of the week. There might be a few sneaky games, but this is definitely the headliner. RC says, Jackson Johnson in the house. Appreciate you for being here, both of you. Jackson, if you like hearing hot takes on college football, NFL, college basketball, and the NBA, follow Jeffrey from Only Talk Sports on Twitter. For sure, I tweet usually every single day about a variety of topics in the sport of college basketball, football, NFL, and NBA. Different sports, different topics for sure. So appreciate that, Jax. Appreciate the shout out. He says, what's up to RC as well. So you guys are in store for a great second half. It's about to start. They're showing the highlights of the first half. Both these teams are good. That's undeniable. I think North Carolina, you have the argument that this is possibly one of the best teams that they've had in a few seasons. But UConn, they've been playing great basketball the last few years. Fantastic. So we'll see if they can keep it up in the second half, and it's underway. Tristan Newton to Cam Spencer to Donovan Clingan had a quiet first half. That shows you how good UConn is, that they're up 5, and Donovan Clingan didn't even do much in the first. Had 2 quick fouls, took him out of the game. He's banging with Bacot down low, and Klingman's off the mark. He had a great look, but Bacot affected his shot just enough. Elliot Cadeau kicks to Bacot. Bacot taking contact, and I think that's an and-1 as well. That might be the third on Clingan. If that is the third foul on Donovan Clingan, that is a smart play by Bacot to crash in and pick up his third. I think it is, unless they call it on Cam Spencer. Let's see. Yeah, that was great defense from Bacot, guarding Klingman on the other end. I think UConn fans were looking for a foul, though, but they didn't call it. They thought that Bacot hit him on the arm. I don't think he did. I think it was straight-up defense. But Bacot, he struggled at the line in the first, and he's still struggling. He is having one of his worst free throw shooting games this season. Yep, it was Klingman's third foul. So he's out of the game just as quickly as he came back in. After 30 seconds in the second half, back to the bench for the 7'2" center for the Huskies. 3-point game, but North Carolina would have the lead right now if they'd hit more of their free throws. Tristan Newton driving into the lane with a floater. What a play by Newton. Newton's rock solid. Never gets sped up. North Carolina down the floor. Cadeau to Ingram. Inside, Ingram misses the layup. UConn with the board. What a play by Samson Johnson to crash to the deck to get that ball. Tristan Newton driving down the floor. 18:50 to go in the second half. Newton top of the key. Over to Caravan for three, and Alex Caravan with a three. 49-41, and just like that, UConn's back up by 8, and that's Caravan's first 3 of the game. He's 1 of 5 from 3. Is this where UConn's going to start pulling away again? Cadeau trying to drive on Caravan. He turns it over. Caravan with the steal. Kicks to Cam Spencer. With Clingan out, UConn's still dangerous. Caravan over to Samson Johnson. Back to Cam Spencer to Solomon. Ball for 3, and it's good. UConn up by 11. 52-41. 8-0 run for the Huskies. And again, with Klingman on the bench, showing you that they are much more than their center. Something Purdue can struggle with at times. This is a guard-oriented team that has a great center. UConn is dangerous. 52-41. Cormac Ryan, before he can get his floater up, they call a foul. That's insane. That is wild how well that UConn is playing right now without their center. You would think that would make it where North Carolina realizes they don't have to really guard the paint as much. They're guarding the three-point line more heavily. But UConn is so good at passing the ball that it's allowing one of their guys to finally get open. Cormac Ryan, give and go to Bacot, back to Ryan for 2. That's a good play. And like I said, Bacot improving as a passer. That's going to help out potentially his NBA draft stock. That's helping out the Tar Heels this season. Cormac Ryan with 6 points. He has not hit a 3, but he's been impactful getting in the lane. Tar Heels cut it back to 9. Tristan Newton, top of the key. Tar Heels have to guard the three-point line because UConn, they're busting threes left and right. Cam Spencer gets a ball screen. Trying to find an open lane. Kicks to Caravan in the corner. Back to Spencer for 3. And Cam Spencer with 1 second on the shot clock knocks in the triple. 55-43. Cam Spencer has 19 points. 3 of 7 from 3. UConn, they cannot miss from the outside right now. And Dan Hurley's going crazy. I don't know what he's yelling about. Maybe he's mad that the refs stopped play. Maybe they called a foul. I'm not sure. Maybe they called a foul on the rebound down low. I don't know what happened there. Oh, they called a technical. That's what I'm about to say. So it really couldn't have been a foul. Because when he made the shot, being inbounding the ball, but no, it was a technical. I guess Cam Spencer said something to the North Carolina bench. So that helps there because Bacot got a technical foul in the first half. So if RJ Davis can hit both these free throws, which he does, that negates the technical foul free throws in the first. That's a win for Carolina. Yeah, I think he said something to Bacot. That's all it was. Yeah, he was talking to him down the floor. Back in the 80s, 90s, they wouldn't have called that, but, you know, you can't do that. He was talking to him all the way down the floor. But that helps out the Tar Heels, stop some of that momentum. But Carolina has to get stops. They are not preventing UConn from hitting these threes. They got to guard them better. Davis, he cannot respond with a three of his own. Solomon Ball with the board. 16:50 to go. RJ Davis is 9 points. He's only at 1-3 in this game, trying to keep the Tar Heels in it. Tristan Newton, the floor general, running this game very well for UConn. Cormac Ryan on him in the lane. Kicks out to Samson Johnson, to Cam Spencer. He's hit 3 threes in this game. To Solomon Ball for a deep three, and he hits another three. UConn cannot miss right now from the outside. What can North Carolina do? North Carolina, that was a deep three. They actually defended that fairly well. And now there's a stoppage of play. UConn's talking to the refs. Dan Hurley saying it was a flop. So you got Dan Hurley saying there should have been a flop called. UConn's talking to the rest, some of the players. Now the refs are talking about it. We'll see what happens. But one thing's for sure, regardless of what happens, if North Carolina wants any shot to win this game, they cannot keep having UConn hitting these threes. UConn's a great three-point shooting team, but I think the fact that they're shooting the basketball this well without Donovan Clingan in the game is scary, because having a center like Clingan, it draws defenders in the paint, and it gives you more open shots. That's the way Purdue works with Edey. Even though they struggle to shoot, UConn does not struggle to shoot, even without Clingan. And maybe this is just a hot streak, but I've seen UConn do this. They blew out Indiana. They have dominated other opponents already this year, because when they get hot, a flurry of threes, they can put you away. They're not a perfect team. That's why they've already lost a game this year. But they're really good. And if North Carolina just cannot defend enough, if UConn keeps hitting these three, even if they step up their perimeter defense, which I think they have the last minute, it hasn't mattered. Stephen Cherry says officials are ruining this game with these technicals. I agree. It slows it down. It's much more fun when it's going back and forth, kind of like the NBA. You know, you do like some semblance of, you know, actually running some plays, but sometimes just going up and down the floor can be a lot of fun. But when there's all these technicals and you're stop and play, it can be rough for sure. The one thing that could bail out North Carolina, though, as the game goes on, is that UConn's getting in foul trouble. 3 of their guys have 3 fouls. Tristan Newton, Samson Johnson, and Donovan Clingan. I think they called a foul on Newton there. So now North Carolina, they're down by 13. Largest lead of the game for UConn, but the Huskies getting in foul trouble. What can North Carolina do? RJ Davis drives in and they call a foul on UConn. So that's helping out North Carolina. North Carolina, I mean, they're not in massive trouble yet because there's still so much time left in this game. But they're in a bit of a danger zone. And the fact that they keep driving and UConn keeps picking up these fouls, that is only going to help out North Carolina. And when you foul a guy like RJ Davis, unlike Armando Bacot, you know RJ Davis is going to hit these free throws. 95% at the line. RJ Davis leads the ACC in free throw percentage. And what do you know? He knocks them both down. He's 6 of 6 at the line. It's 58-47. UConn, they're up by 11. But my word of advice for both these teams, if I'm UConn, stop fouling. And if I'm North Carolina, try to guard the perimeter a bit better. Inside, turnover for UConn. Tried to get it to Samson Johnson with an alley-oop. Did not work. RJ Davis in the lane. Kicks to Harrison Ingram for 3. Man, that would have been a big shot for the Tar Heels. That would have cut it under 10. But it did not happen. And then the ball went out of bounds. It's off of UConn. North Carolina ball. It's the under 16 timeout. Solomon Ball for UConn saying he got pushed, but they don't call it. Steven says this version of the Huskies looks stronger than last season, especially, again, when you talk about, like I said earlier, UConn had a skid, a very rough skid where they lost 6 of 8 games. And I believe that the way UConn looks right now, they're way better than they were at this time last year. But will they get better to the point where they're better than what that team became. Because I believe UConn, as the season went along last year, they got way better than they were at the beginning of the year. UConn looks really good right now, but sometimes when you're that good early on, you never really get much better, and then other teams can catch up with you. So it's going to come down to whether UConn can keep improving as the season goes along and get to the point where they can eclipse what they were last year so they can possibly win another title, because there are a lot of good teams this year in college basketball. It's not a runaway where UConn is, heavily favored to win it all and no other team, really can. There's a lot of good teams, but this UConn team is dangerous. And like I said, when you can have a guy like Clingan in foul trouble and you're still beating a top 10 team by 11 on a neutral site, that's impressive. Still a lot of basketball left to be played. And I believe that North Carolina can still come back and win. But if you're UNC, you have to just continue to get to the foul line and make your free throws. If Bacot had to hit all of his, it'd only be like a 6-point game right now. Jackson said, I wonder which UNC we were getting, the one that made to the Final Four 2021-2022 or the one from last season. I believe you're in the middle. And see, the thing that is frustrating a bit about North Carolina making the Final Four in the championship game that year in 2021-2022 is because that team was not as good as that. They struggled all year, and they went on a run. It was a great run, fantastic run led by Caleb Love, but that team was never that good. And I know it sounds crazy because, yes, they made it all the way there. But I believe that North Carolina team was like around an 8 or a 9 seed that year. They were worse in the regular season. They ended up being better in the tournament. Then the next year, they had UConn, they had North Carolina ranked high, and UConn wasn't even super highly ranked early on. What happened? UConn flipped the script, ended up being, the team that won it all. North Carolina didn't even make the tournament. Do I believe North Carolina was an NIT team? I think they were better than that. But part of the issue is you look at Pete Nance. He was injured, and he didn't replace that Brady Manick role at all to the same ability. And I feel like this year North Carolina's in the middle again. I don't think they're an NIT team, and I don't think they're a championship team. Now, can they get to the championship? Maybe, especially if they can go on a run like they did in 21-22. But I don't believe North Carolina's been a legit national title-like team since Roy Williams. Even that year with Caleb Love and Hubert Davis. They just went on a run. It can happen. South Carolina went to the Final Four with Frank Martin, and no one thought they were one of the 4 best teams. It's almost like we're talking about the playoff in college football. It's crazy. RC said nothing much, just chilling in the chat with y'all. Definitely appreciate you for chilling in the chat. Appreciate everyone for being here. Like the stream down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Share the stream out on social media. But most importantly, thanks for being here, because we've got 15:49 to go in the second half. UConn's up by 11 points, 58-47. 3 of their players are in foul trouble. It has not affected the Huskies yet. But North Carolina, the thing that's keeping them in the game right now is they are getting to the foul line, knocking down some of their free throws. And UConn, they're knocking down a bunch of threes. But Carolina, they've got the ball right now. Elliot Cadeau, what can he do on the offensive end to help out the Tar Heels? RJ Davis, he certainly provided a spark in the second half. Cormac Ryan's threes off the mark. Ingram tried to get the board. Didn't happen. Cam Spencer ends up with it for the Huskies. UConn up by 11. Hassan Jara, the A&M transfer with the ball. Alex Caravan, an improved player this year for UConn, and there's a foul on the floor. So that's the first foul in North Carolina. They call it on Harrison Ingram. He doesn't agree with the call. UConn already has 5 fouls in the second half. That's the first for Carolina. But definitely a cheap foul. It looks like the refs are just trying to keep this game in check, neither team, really getting into it, which I get that, but still, you want to let both teams have some free-flowing play. Inside, Solomon Ball, very talented freshman, kicks it out to Jara. 15 on the shot clock. Inside to Caravan, gets it away from RJ Davis, and he lays it in with 2 guys draped over. What a play. 60-47, 13-point lead for UConn. Again, matching their largest lead. Caravan with 9. Cadeau to Ingram inside. Ingram with a turnaround layup. What a play. That was a good play by Ingram. Carolina has to continue to get it inside, but they need stops. They cannot trade buckets with UConn right now. Down by double digits. Ingram has 13 points. He's close to his season averages of 14.5 points per game. Jara top of the key. 14:40 to go in the second half. RJ Davis guarding him. Cam Spencer in the paint. Cam Spencer kicks out to Caravan. Good defense from Cormac Ryan, and the ball's off of Ryan. Almost looked like a turnover. Almost looked like a turnover. That was a really good defensive play by Cormac Ryan nonetheless, even though they didn't get the ball back. 14:33 to go in the second half. Carolina down by 11. They need some stops starting now. Cam Spencer with a mid-range jumper, and it's good. 62-49. The Huskies up by 13 yet again. Cam Spencer with 21 points to lead all scorers. 7-11 from the field. What a game he's having. Bacot, what a pass to Ingram for almost like a dunk. He ran out of steam, but he still was able to lay it in. He's got 15 points. He's over his season average. Great pass from Bacot. I'm very impressed with the improvement of Bacot's passing this year. Caravan to Jara, out to Ball. Good D by Ryan to catch up with him there. Hassan Jara over to Samson Johnson, who's still playing for Clingan, who's out with 3 fouls. Ball to Spencer. That's smart of Dan Hurley, leaving him on the bench. He doesn't need him in. His team's up by double digits. If Carolina can cut it, he'll bring him back in. No time on the clock. Ball chunks up a 3, and it's a shot clock violation. That was a terrible possession for the UConn Huskies. Good defense. Very good defense by North Carolina there. But North Carolina is going to have to start hitting some buckets or it's not going to matter. North Carolina is struggling to shoot from the outside too. And when you're down, like they are, down by 11 points, sometimes you got to be able to knock in some three-point jumpers to really cut the lead. But you don't also want to really do anything that's going to mess you up either. If you're North Carolina, I guess just keep doing what's working, and that's getting into the paint. Armando Bacot lost the ball out of bounds. So it will still be North Carolina basketball. 62-51. Castle, the number 8 recruit in the country for UConn. He's not had too much of an impact on this game, but Bacot blocked by Samson Johnson. UConn back the other way. Jara to Spencer, who's had an incredible game with over 20 points. He missed some threes early in this one, but he has gotten hot again in the second half. He's a streaky player, but more often than not, he's on rather than off. Inside, Stephon Castle draws the foul on Cormac Ryan. He's going to the charity stripe. And that's a good play by Castle, realizing my jumper's not going in right now. I got to get inside, try to get to the line. And when you are that talented of a player with the frame that he has, he can get in the paint. He can draw those fouls and hit. Sometimes all you need to do is hit a free throw or two to get your momentum going. North Carolina, they cannot foul UConn at this stage of the game. UConn's already draining threes on them. They cannot start having them go to the line as well. That's been the advantage North Carolina's had. Castle's first free throw's off the mark. So he does look a little rusty. I will admit that. I think he will get things figured out once he gets back into the game longer. But unfortunately for him, it's just one of those deals where he's been, out for a few games. He's just a bit rusty, but he'll get back. He's very talented. Clingan's back in the game for UConn. I guess Dan Hurley feels like even though he has 3 fouls, bring him back in now. Don't want him sitting on the bench too long and get cold. Castle is the second. 12-point game. 63-51. Under 13 to go in the second half. Can North Carolina make this game more interesting? Can they get it back to under 10 points? Harrison Ingram driving on Alex Caravan. Going up strong. What a play by Harrison Ingram. Bully ball down low. That's a 10-point game. North Carolina fans getting back on their feet. Ingram has 17. Down low, Clingan, he's fouled. Really, basically, North Carolina did everything they possibly could for Clingan not to score there. I mean, they hacked him. Like 3 guys fouled him. So I don't even know who got the foul call on. Because it could have been 3 different players. Yeah, North Carolina did not do a good job. I think they're going to call it on Trimble. Could have been Withers as well, but I think it's on Trimble. Clingan's only a 52% free throw shooter, so sometimes it is wise to foul him because he's not the best free throw shooter. And he just missed the first. So if North Carolina, just say they're down by like 5 or 6 points with a minute to go, are they going to try hack-a-shack? Are they going to foul Clingan and hope he misses like Shaquille O'Neal used to in the NBA? If that happens, Dan Hurley might have to take him out. But right now, UConn's still up by 10. That's not an issue right now. But Clingan just missed both free throws. That could have helped out UConn big time. Got him back up by 12. Huskies 7-12 at the line. North Carolina 12 of 18. Tar Heels need a bucket. R.J. Davis gets the ball screen, shoot the three, and it's good. R.J. Davis for three. His second three of the game. 63, 256, 14 points for R.J. Davis, 2 of 4 from 3. Turnover. R.J. Davis inside, and he lays it in. 63-58, timeout UConn. North Carolina's cut it to 5. What a play by R.J. Davis. Sloppy pass from the Huskies. And that's the first stretch in a while where UConn has legitimately played bad basketball. Clingan missing 2 free throws. Turnover by UConn, just making mistakes. And that's getting North Carolina right back in the game. R.J. Davis, one of the most experienced guards in the sport, like Tristan Newton. You just cannot make a mistake like that. R.J. Davis will make you pay with his quick hands, laying it in. And now North Carolina's fans, they're getting fired back up because they've been quiet for a while. Ever since North Carolina relinquished the lead early in the game, UConn's led since, and they've been up by double digits for a while now. North Carolina fans haven't had much to cheer about, but R.J. Davis is getting them back on their feet. How will UConn respond to the game pressure? And what's kind of ironic is that it seemed like UConn was playing better when Clingan was on the bench. Now, I don't know if that's just because Clingan, the way his style of play, being more down low, they're trying to get it to him. Whereas, when he was off the floor, UConn was more prioritizing the jump shots. They were falling. Now that he's back in, they're trying to go back toward being inside, and Bacot's just doing a good enough job on defense down there. I don't know. But UConn's going to have to find a way to make this work because Clingan's too good to leave off the floor. But he has to score because if not, if he gets fouled, he's not making his free throws. So it's going to be interesting to see what Dan Hurley chooses to do. Steven says Hubert Davis had better make a run this season or that seat will get hot. I agree with you, Steven. If Hubert Davis, they don't make the tournament, I'm not saying he's going to get fired, but like you said, his seat's definitely going to get hot. If they make the tournament, losing the first round, that won't be good either. He needs to at least make the tournament, probably as like a 7 or 6 seed, and win a game or two. That would really help out his case for sure. And if they're like a 4 seed, make it to the Sweet 16 or better, then I'm sure most Carolina fans will be back on the Hubert Davis bandwagon. But you are right, Steven needs to start winning. And then you say, got to get up early, Jeff. Great show. See you next time. Thanks, Steven. I appreciate you for being here. Definitely understand, got to get some sleep. But I do appreciate you for being here. Appreciate all your comments as well. But thanks, everybody, also for being here as well. We've got 12 minutes to go in this Jimmy V Classic. Great game for a great cause. Who's going to come out on top in this top 10 battle? It's going to be a fantastic finish. I was getting a little worried it wasn't going to be, that UConn was going to run away with this thing. But North Carolina making it interesting, cutting it to 5. Harrison Ingram has 17 points and 2 boards, 7 of 9 from the field. R.J. Davis has 16 points, 4 of 7 from the field, and 4 boards. And most importantly, he's perfect at the charity stripe. He has not missed a free throw. Bacot's missed, I think, 3 or 4. And if he had to hit all of his free throws, North Carolina would only be down by like 1 right now. So obviously it's not the end of the world for North Carolina that Bacot missed those free throws. But down the stretch of the game, North Carolina has to pound the paint, hit free throws, and continue to guard UConn. Cannot allow them to make threes. And if you have to foul Clingan, foul him because he's not the best free throw shooter. So we'll see which strategy works, and if Dan Hurley realizes that Klingman's not working out right now, whether they take him out of the game. But there's 12 more minutes to go to find out. UConn has 2 timeouts remaining. North Carolina has 3. Top of the key. Stephon Castle over to Tristan Newton, inside to Clingan. Clingan down the floor. He missed. Good defense from Jalen Washington. Almost a turnover, but somehow UConn got it back. What hustle by both teams. Newton. 10 seconds on the shot clock, being guarded by Jalen Washington. Kicks to Caravan. Inside to Stephon Castle. Goes up strong with the layup. What a play by the 5-star freshman. That's a really good play. 3 points for Castle. That's his first field goal of the game. Maybe that will get him going for the Huskies. A lot of talent on that play. RJ Davis driving in. Kicks to Jalen Washington. He misses. What a block by Clingan. 7-point lead for UConn. Huskies running the floor. Caravan for 3. His shot's off the mark. Trimble with the board. If that had fallen, the roof would have exploded with the Husky fans rising to their feet. RJ Davis in the paint. His shot's good. What a play by RJ Davis. He thought he was fouled on that play. RJ has 18 points, 65-60. Under 11 to go. Newton to Clingan, and Clingan missed the one-handed dunk. Unbelievable pass from Tristan Newton. And somehow Donovan Clingan missed the dunk. I think he mishandled it there. He mishandled it, but you got to make that dunk. And they're talking to him on the sidelines. I think it was a great pass, but it was a little behind him. But still, Clingan with that 7'2" frame, got to get that ball to go in the hoop. But RJ Davis, he has been the spark plug. He's been the leader that North Carolina's needed in this second half. Things look bleak for the Tar Heels. They do not look bleak any longer. Still, UConn has the advantage right now. But it has been a very impressive resurgence in the second half for North Carolina. They're on an 11-3 run. I mean, UConn's been dominating this game for the most part. Ever since they took the lead, North Carolina has not been able to really challenge the Huskies. And I wouldn't say they've challenged them yet. They're still down by 5. But still, this is the best and closest that North Carolina has played in the second half, and they've played really good basketball. RJ Davis, his energy, getting that steal on that possession to cut the lead, knocking down free throws. We'll see what happens in the last 10:43 of the game. But Donovan Clingan, he has not had a big game here. And part of it, he's missed a couple bunnies, to be fair. He's missed a couple bunnies, but I do think North Carolina has legitimately frustrated him. Jalen Washington, Harrison Ingram, Armando Bacot, even though they're all way smaller than Clingan, they've been very physical with them. The refs have been letting them play at times, even though they're having some chippy fouls. But they've been letting them play a little bit. Both teams playing hard. You knew they were going to play hard. You knew it was going to be a physical matchup. I mean, when you've got Armando Bacot and Donovan Clingan, that's going to be a physical matchup right there. But even the guards are physical. I mean, when you talk Harrison Ingram, a small forward for North Carolina, he's banging in there. Stephon Castle driving out of control for UConn. Newton, even though he's on the smaller side, he likes physicality as well. Both these teams have a very physical style of play, and it's very entertaining as well to watch when you see how both teams run the floor hard, but they also give you that physicality. It's not all run and gun, shooting up a bunch of threes. UConn does more of that than North Carolina, but UConn does get back to basics and tries to score inside. North Carolina, they were about run and gun when Roy Williams was the coach, and they still are to an extent, but they've slowed things down a bit. But they can still speed it up when they have to. And even though I think UConn's the quicker team, North Carolina is a very quick team in their own right. So it's a good matchup. Fantastic game as well. Right now, you've got Baylor beating Seton Hall 70-54. Very impressive by Baylor. Gonzaga's destroying Arkansas Palm of 104-62. BYU destroying Evansville. San Diego State losing to Grand Canyon 59-54. You do not want to schedule Grand Canyon on the road. That is always a tough environment. Be a great win for San Diego State if they can get it. But right now, they're losing by 5 on the road. Another team's losing by 5, and that's the North Carolina Tar Heels. Down 65-60 in the Jimmy V Classic in Madison Square Garden. Both Dan Hurley and Hubert Davis been very vocal in this game. Jalen Withers, he's on the floor again, the Louisville transfer. RJ Davis with the ball. What more can he provide for North Carolina on offense? He shoots a 3. It's off the mark. If that had gone in, North Carolina fans, they'd have been back on their feet in a hurry, but just couldn't get it to fall. Down the floor, Tristan Newton, his layup's off the mark. UConn not hitting the shots they were hitting just a few minutes ago. Harrison Ingram driving in. His shot's off the mark, and UConn has the board. That's a big miss. Ingram needed to hit that layup. He had leverage, but was just a bit too strong on it. Now the game's starting to slow down. UConn trying to figure out what they need to do on offense. Get it back to Tristan Newton's hands. He's the facilitator. He's the tough shot scorer. He can hit a shot from anywhere on the floor. Doesn't matter who he's being guarded by. Alex Karaban kicks to Clingan. Clingan down low, and he gets the shot to fall and one. 67-60, 9:48 to go in the second half. No one guarded the big man in the paint. They let him roll to the hoop. In North Carolina, they tried to prevent him from being able to go up with that shot. They tried to foul him, but he got the shot to fall anyway. And when you have a guy like Clingan, who has not scored a lot in this game, only had 2 points before that shot there, you got to foul him and make sure he doesn't score. Yeah, they fouled him, but he scored anyway, so that's an L for North Carolina, especially if he hits this free throw. He's only a 50% free throw shooter, and he's 0 of 2 today, and he misses again. Clingan is 0 of 3 at the line, so his free throw shooting is hurting the Huskies. 9:40 to go. R.J. Davis with the ball. He blows by Newton, kicks it to Bacot. Down low, and is there a foul? No, they call a top, and North Carolina does have the possession arrow. So North Carolina bailed out by the fact they have the arrow, but that would have been disastrous. That would have been disastrous for North Carolina if that had ended up being a turnover, the ball going back the other way. But Bacot, he got stuck in the lane, and Karaban and Clingan tied him up. 9:37 to go in the second half. Cadeau to inbound. Kicks to R.J. Davis with the floater. His shot's off the mark. Great box out by the Huskies, but Karaban lost the basketball. UConn did everything right on that defensive possession, but they could not get the board. And that is the most important thing. You got to get the rebound. Karaban had it, but a little poke by Withers. Somehow they didn't get him for a foul for reaching in. Well, like he got all ball, but it's Carolina basketball. Cadeau to Ingram. 9:20 to go. Ingram in the lane. His shot's off the mark. Bacot trying to tip it in. He can't. Both teams are fighting for the ball, and Newton has it. UConn is up with it. North Carolina had 3 chances to score there, and they couldn't do it. 9:10 to go in the second. Karaban back to Newton. If North Carolina gives up another basket here, all that momentum is gone. It's going to be going back to the Huskies. And what a pass. What a play by Klingman to Alex Karaban, showing that he can pass too, just like Bacot. 69-60 for a big dunk. R.J. Davis yet again, though, responding on the other end, keeping the Tar Heels within distance. 21 points for Davis. 69-63, 8:40 to go in the second half. That was a great pass by Clingan. I don't think he could have made a pass like that as a freshman. So he's improving as well. Karaban with a deep 3. It's off the mark. That's a bad shot by Karaban. Shouldn't have shot that, especially with Clingan not in the paint to try to get the offensive rebound. Ingram kicks to Withers. One-on-one with Karaban on the block. Withers goes up strong. It's short. Ball's out of bounds off the Tar Heels. Missed opportunity for UNC. Man, both these teams are playing hard. What a game. 69-63. Cam Spencer has 21 points for UConn. R.J. Davis has 21 points for Carolina, but UConn has just gotten a little bit more production from their other guys. Not from Clingan, though. He only has 4 points. Carolina's kept him in check. Spencer to Karaban. Cross half court to Solomon Ball. He's trying to get in the lane. He tried to draw a foul, and they're going to call an offensive foul. Dan Hurley's mad. He's saying it's a flop, but I think that the refs got that right. That's an offensive foul. Solomon Ball is a big guy, and he rammed his shoulder right into Cadeau. Yeah, did he accentuate the foul? Yeah, he did. But I believe that was a good call. Carolina with the ball. Bacot trying to get it to Cadeau. He does. Cadeau driving into the lane, and a bad pass from Elliott Cadeau. The ball's out of bounds, and they're calling it off of North Carolina. Under 8 minutes to go. I know what Cadeau is trying to do. He wanted to alley-oop there to Bacot, but you got to go up with the layup. He had the leverage. Bacot was stuck by Clingan. I think that was a bad decision by Cadeau. He is a freshman. So it's hard to blame him, especially when he's trying to get the big involved. But that was not a good decision by Cadeau. Now we're at the under 8 timeout. Both these teams are going to be fighting toward the end of the Blue Blood Battle and the Jimmy V Classic. Over on Peacock, Indiana and Michigan are tied at 73. So that's a really good game. 1:22 to go. Baylor beat Seton Hall by 14. Still, you've got Grand Canyon up by 13 now in San Diego State. It looks like the Aztecs are going to be falling right back out of the top 25 just as quickly as they came in. If they lose that game. Obviously, still probably enough time to come back, but they're down by 13 there. Illinois got the big win earlier over Florida Atlantic in the Jimmy V Classic. Oklahoma beating Providence by 21 was big. And Wisconsin winning at the Breslin Center. Tough loss. Very tough loss for Tom Izzo's squad, who now has 4 losses on the year, which is insane. I don't think anybody was expecting Michigan State to be a 4-loss team this early in the season. But he always has his squad playing tough opponents. That's what Tom Izzo does. Tom Izzo always wants to get them ready for the Big Ten and the NCAA tournament by scheduling tough opponents in the non-conference. And a lot of times it pays off. But sometimes I feel like he has them playing too many tough opponents and it makes them have too many losses. So then when they do make the NCAA tournament, instead of getting like a 3 seed or a 2 seed, they end up getting like a 7 or an 8 seed, and it's much tougher to advance in the tournament when you're a lower seed. But Tom Izzo, he has his decision-making, has his ways on what he wants to do, and it makes sense to an extent. You want your team to be prepared. I get it, but it is tough sometimes when your team is already at 4-4 this early in the season. But North Carolina and UConn, neither of these teams are 4-4. They're both 7-1. They're both ranked in the top 10, and a lot of people believe that this UConn team could be a national title contender again. They could repeat. There's going to be a lot of teams in the running this year. You look at teams again like Kansas, Arizona, Baylor's playing well, Houston's playing well. So many great basketball teams. People believe in Purdue. I don't think Purdue can go far, but a lot of people believe in them. I think Arizona, Kansas, UConn, a lot of those teams are at the top. Marquette as well. Marquette's, even though they did suffer a tough loss the other night to Wisconsin. But Wisconsin, hey, they're looking really good right now, so you never know. But a lot of good teams. So UConn's not the runaway favorite, but they've got the speed, they've got the big, and they got a lot of good guards. Maybe they can be able to win it. But North Carolina, they're going to try to prevent that from happening and prove that under Hubert Davis, that they are not backsliding as a program, that they're not falling apart after Roy Williams' retirement, that they're still going to be one of the best college basketball teams. Ranked at number 9 in the country, the highest that they've been ranked after they fell far from their number 1 spot last year, and they fell all the way out of the poll, didn't even make the tournament. But North Carolina, down by 6. 7:43 to go. UConn almost turned them over. Carolina threw it in. Cadeau tried to get the ball, but good defense by Solomon Ball, who's having a good game on offense and on defense for a freshman. That did not get as much attention as Stephon Castle. Solomon Ball been a great addition for UConn. RJ Davis in the lane. He misses the shot. Cam Spencer with a tough, gritty rebound. Down the floor, Tristan Newton kicks it inside to Clingan, and there's a foul. Is that shot going to count? I think it does. Are they going to say that's an and one? I don't know. Maybe that foul was on the floor. I'm not 100% sure. Let's see. But if that counts, that's an insane play by Clingan, following through on the shot. No, they're going to call it on the floor. I agree with that. I think the foul was before the shot. But Alex Karaban cashes in on a 3. So it would have been better for the Tar Heels if Clingan scored on that dunk, because then he probably would have, or scored on that layup, because it probably would have been a missed free throw. But now they just hit a 3. Cormac Ryan on the other end for Carolina. His 3 went in and out. It was all the way in the rim, but it bounced back out. That's tough. That is a big miss for North Carolina. Cormac Ryan's shot was halfway in and it rolled out. Cadeau almost with the steal. He can't get it. Caravan down the floor, and the ball is Who are the refs going to rule it off of? They're going to call a top. The ball went out of bounds, but they're going to call a top. That's the first time I think I've ever seen that. Or the ball goes out of bounds and there's a top, but UConn is the arrow. I don't know how it was. I guess the refs didn't know who it went off of, so they were like, just call a top so UConn will get the ball. That's crazy. It's under 7 to go. Clingan with the ball. 10 seconds on the shot clock. Newton shots off the mark. Caravan tries to save it, and he cannot. Ball's out of bounds. It's Carolina basketball. Carolina's going to have to find a way to stop either shooting these threes if they're not making them and get in the paint, or just keep chunking up the threes and hope they start to fall, because they're not making threes right now, and every possession counts. They're getting back in danger zone because the time is getting short in this game, and they're shooting another three, and Ron's off the mark. If they're not hitting these threes, they need to get in the paint. They have to abandon the three before it's too late, before they have to shoot them. Solomon ball on the other end. UConn hits another three. Solomon Ball with 13 points. What a game for the four-star freshman. The Huskies are back up by 12. UConn officially taking control of this game once again. Now that they've extended the lead back up by over 10. North Carolina's in a lot of trouble. They're not making their threes. They're not getting in the paint and getting to the line like they were earlier in the game. So I do not know what North Carolina is going to be able to do here. Clingan's playing good defense down low. Bacot can't really get anything going like he was a few minutes ago. RJ Davis, they're guarding him hard because they know that if he gets going again, he can hit a couple threes, get Carolina back in it. But Carolina bailed out here. Clingan picked up his fourth. That's tough for UConn. The only good thing about that is he's not going to be on the floor to possibly pick up fouls, get to the line, and possibly also, miss free throws. And that would help out Carolina. But North Carolina, they split the free throws. Cadeau missed the first. He hit the second. So it's 75-64. Carolina hanging on by a thread in this game. UConn got it over the timeline. Inside to Samson Johnson. He missed a one-handed dunk just like Clingan did earlier in the game. Paxton Wojcik to Harrison Ingram. Over to Cadeau. In the lane, Cadeau with an easy layup. And it's a 9-point game yet again. Smart play by Cadeau, not taking the three, showing he's wise beyond his years. That was a really good play. He saw a lane to the basket. Really good play. 75-66. 5:59 to go in the second half. Carolina needs stops. Carolina needs to get to the foul line, make some free throws, try to slow this game down, because it looks like they're getting a little tired as well. Because UConn, they're running the floor all over the place. Newton kicks to Caravan. Misses the three, went in and out just like Cormac Rhines did. Now over to Cam Spencer. His shot went in and out. 2 threes for the Huskies. Halfway in the rim and out. Big break for the Tar Heels. They need a bucket. Cadeau driving into the lane, but he turns it over. Big mistake. Caravan to Newton. Over RJ Davis, and he lays it in. What a turn of events. 77-66. 11-point lead for UConn. Newton with 14 points, 6 of 10 from the field. RJ Davis in the paint, tried to kick it to Bacot, and there's a turnover. Unbelievable. 5:18 to go in the second. Every time it looks like Carolina's starting to make the right move, get back in this game, they make a mistake, a turnover, a missed layup, and UConn playing steady as ever. And again, with Clingan out, they're playing better. How ironic that with their 7'2" center on the bench. I don't know if it's a coincidence, but UConn has been playing better basketball in this game with him on the bench. The floor is more spaced. They're running the floor all over the place. It's making it very tough for North Carolina to guard them. Every time Clingan's in on the bench, UConn's been playing at their best. And this last run, if UConn keeps it up, might put the Tar Heels away. Newton with the ball to Cam Spencer. He's been quiet lately, but he still has 21 big points in this game. Newton on Trimble. Takes a three. His shot's off the mark, but Cam Spencer is right there for the offensive rebound and putback. What a play. 79-66. UConn matches their largest lead of 13. Cam Spencer with 23 points. Sometimes it's just better to be in the right place at the right time. RJ Davis misses the layup on the other end. Bacot missed an easy chip putback. That was like a half-foot shot that he missed. Caravan inside, and he lays it in, and this game might be about over. The Huskies are putting away the Tar Heels just like they put away the Hoosiers and a lot of other opponents this year. Besides their one loss, they've been incredible to start the season. They deserve that top 5 ranking. North Carolina, they've got a good team. They've got a lot of solid players. But they might not be any match for the Huskies in this game. They're down by 15. They had it at 5 points at one time. It was 65-60. And ever since then, UConn has gone on a 16-6 run. That might be enough to put the Tar Heels away. I do think Hubert Davis has a good team this year. I really do. In North Carolina, they've shown improvement in a lot of areas. But this run late in this game by UConn just shows you another gear that North Carolina has to reach if they're going to reach their potential. They're not there yet. I mean, it really is tough to blame, North Carolina for a poor performance in this game. Because North Carolina last year, the way that they played, they were not very good. So they do look better this season. And it's still an early season game. We're not even really a third of the way in yet in college basketball. Still early in the season. But this loss, presumably, it appears by North Carolina, does show that there's still a gap for the Tar Heels. They're not back. They're not at the top of the sport yet. I think they could be a perennial top 25 team this year. They could be one of the best teams in the ACC, and maybe they can make a run in the tournament. But UConn just has another gear. When they reach that level where they're playing this well of basketball, it is hard to stop them. I've seen it several times where UConn's been in close games, and then they just blow it open late. Because I think that when they were playing Indiana in the Empire Classic, also in Madison Square Garden, about 2 weeks ago, it was about a 6-point game with 10 minutes left. And then Connecticut just blew it open. Dan Hurley's squad just started chunking a bunch of threes. They went in. They were getting it inside. They were alley-oop and dunking all over the Hoosiers. And they're doing the same thing to the Tar Heels. North Carolina, they hung in there longer than Indiana did. So I think that shows you how, possibly the potential that Carolina has. And Hubert Davis, I'm sure he'll say after the game, if Carolina cannot come back, which, again, not looking like they're going to at this point, I'm sure he'll say, we played hard, but we got a lot of things to work on. And that's true. I mean, it's better to be, a really good team that takes your lumps early against these great programs, these great teams, and get it figured out by the end of the season than to struggle against bad opponents and then, never really improve. Don't learn from it. So Carolina, I think they're a solid team, but this UConn team, as you guys have mentioned in chat, the Huskies, they're legit yet again for the second straight year. And the thing that's scary is that they're playing better now than they were at this point in the season last year. And they possibly can only get better from here. It's going to be crazy to see how UConn progresses throughout the season, how many losses they take, because they had like 9 losses at the end of the regular season last year. How many games will UConn lose in the Big East? It's going to be wild. This team, very dangerous. RJ Davis down the floor, misses the layup. Paxton Wojcik getting that offensive rebound. Really good play by him. Cadeau, top of the key. Carolina has to do something. They're taking too much time. UConn with their largest lead of the game. If Carolina has any hope, they need to score now. Ingram inside in the paint. His shot's off the mark, and Carolina can't get anything going. Still with Clingan on the bench. Connecticut's playing that well without their star center. Tristan Newton's had a great game. Cam Spencer has had a great game. Solomon Ball, Alex Caravan's chipped in as well. Tristan Newton being guarded by RJ Davis. Huskies up by 15. Under 3:30 to go. Looks like they're about to bring Clingan back in possibly. I wonder if Carolina will try to foul him. And then they foul Solomon Johnson. Not a smart foul there by North Carolina. You played straight-up defense the entire possession, and then you foul. That's not a smart foul if you're Carolina. You're down by 15. You just ate up 26 seconds of the shot clock, and then you foul. Terrible decision by North Carolina. UConn with the ball. 3:20 to go. 20 seconds back on the shot clock. So that's a win for UConn. Tristan Newton, Top of the key being guarded by Harrison Ingram. That's a win for Newton. Cam Spencer gets around a ball screen from Clingan. Back to Clingan down low, and nobody can stop the big man. He lays it in effortlessly, 83-66. Paxton Wojcik with the ball over to RJ Davis. He takes a step back three out of desperation, but he knocks it down. That's how good of a player RJ Davis is. That tough of a three, that contested of a shot. He knocks it down. Hubert Davis takes a timeout. But I don't know if it's going to mean too much. They're showing on Saturday in college basketball, you got Missouri, Kansas, that rivalry game. That used to be in the Big 12 when Missouri was there, but now they're in the SEC. Obviously, Missouri struggled in that rivalry game for many years now. But still, always a fun matchup. And then Wisconsin, Arizona. Wisconsin in the top 25. Crazy that Wisconsin's doing so well after they've struggled for a few seasons now. But they're playing Arizona. But as one thing is college basketball shown us, that just because you look good in a few games like Arizona has doesn't mean that you're not able to get upset. Wisconsin could definitely beat Arizona. I wouldn't pick it. Definitely think Arizona will win that game, but anything's possible. Wasn't expecting Marquette to lose to Wisconsin. Granted, that is a rivalry game, in-state rivalry. Both teams in the state of Wisconsin, but still, that was a shocking loss. Purdue lost to Northwestern for the second straight season in Evanston. When Purdue was number one, how ironic that is. Both times Purdue have been number one last 2 years. They've lost at Northwestern. The AP poll in the top 10, Arizona, Kansas, Houston, Purdue, UConn, Baylor, Gonzaga, Marquette, North Carolina, and Creighton. That shows you how good the Big East is. 3 of the top 10 teams. North Carolina might fall out of the top 10 with this loss if they do end up losing the game, which if UConn, all they got to do is play smart basketball, which they have for the most part in this game. They almost turned it over, though. But UConn has played smart basketball for the most part. As long as they don't do anything crazy, they should be fine. 2:48 to go. UConn up by 14. Do the Tar Heels have a last gasp in them? Can they guard the Huskies? Can they get some stops, get some quick scores, make it interesting in this Jimmy V Classic? UConn, will they be able to get a top 10 win on a neutral site over the Tar Heels in a battle of blue bloods? UConn down the floor. Solomon Ball has threes off the mark. Carolina ends up with the board. Bacot to Tremble, down to Wojcik, and he's fouled and won. Bad foul by UConn. If you've given up a fast break, just let him score. Not smart there. You got to let him score. Can't bump him there on that shot. Now Paxton Wojcik's at the free throw line. 2:22 to go. UConn up 83-71. Can Wojcik hit the free throw, cut this thing to 11? The transfer from Brown. He misses the free throw. Got to knock down your free throws. If Carolina had to hit most of their free throws in this game would be a lot closer. I wouldn't say that they would have won if they'd hit more of their free throws, but it definitely would be a more interesting game right now. Still be putting more game pressure on UConn. Couple more scores for the Huskies, and this game will be over. Carolina needs stops on every possession the rest of the way. Tristan Newton with the basketball to Cam Spencer. Kicks down low to Caravan for the dunk. What a play. Terrible defense from North Carolina on the weak side help. They played good on the ball defense, but they did not check the weak side. What a play by UConn. 85-71. Harrison Ingram for three. It's good. Carolina cuts it to 11 again. Timeout on the floor. Looks like by Hubert Davis. The last timeout. Probably trying to draw up a couple of good defensive sets and offensive sets to see if maybe Carolina can do anything here. But I do think UConn should be good. The real MVP, thanks for stopping by. Says UConn looks amazing. I agree with you, DeReal. Connecticut is the real deal, again, for the second straight season. And last year, I don't know if you remember, DeReal, but they lost 6 of 8 games. They had a rough skid, but after that, they went rolling in Big East play, and then they won it all. Now, they're starting out this season better than they did last year. And if this team continues to improve, this team might be better than last year. just like Steven said here, this version of the Huskies looks stronger than last season. If UConn ends up being a better team than last year, that means that other teams are going to have to step up. Other teams are going to have to find a way to improve, like Kansas and Arizona, to possibly knock off UConn, or the Huskies will definitely be on track possibly to be the first team since Florida to win back-to-back titles. It's way too early to even assume that. I mean, I don't even start thinking about the tournament until we at least get to February, because there's so much basketball to be played. Injuries can happen. Hopefully that doesn't happen for any team, but there could be a lot of things that prevent, UConn from being a title contender. But the way they look right now, they stay healthy, they continue to improve. This is a dangerous basketball team, and they're beating a good North Carolina team. This is a better North Carolina team than last year. Carolina's added good transfers, and Cormac Ryan, Harrison Ingram, it's made this team better. North Carolina still has a lot to work on, but North Carolina is a better team than they were last year. Hubert Davis has a lot of pieces to work with, but so does Dan Hurley. I mean, when Clingan went to the bench, the 7'2" center for the Huskies, when he went to the bench, UConn's play improved throughout various points of this game because there was more floor spacing. So that's something that Dan Hurley's going to be dealing with all year long. Having Clingan in the game, he's dangerous because he's able to get the ball in the paint and just dunk it on you, even though he is a poor free throw shooter. Long as he makes that bucket, very valuable player. He sets good ball screens as well. But then you talk about the guards. When he's not on the floor, they're able to do a lot of big things. Clingan on the floor, and there's a foul on Carolina. North Carolina called for the foul. Looks like Clingan will be going to the line. DeReal says, I'm expecting UNC to make the tournament this year. They look improved from last year. I agree. And it's still crazy to me how weak the ACC was last year, DeReal, and the fact that North Carolina did not make the tournament even though they won 20 games. Normally, if North Carolina makes 20 wins, they're making the tournament. But since they only had one quad, one win, the committee or the tournament, the people that determine who makes March Madness, talk about the committee in football, but I guess it's a tournament committee in basketball as well. They said North Carolina didn't need to be in, and I understand that because they only had one quad, one win. So we're going off the net rankings now, and it does determine like how many good wins you have, and Carolina did not have them. So them not making the tournament was understood. It made sense. But the ACC looks better this year, I think, overall, and I think Carolina's going to win more games. They do look improved from last year for sure. Like you said, DeReal, I completely agree. Clingan hit both free throws. Funny how it's easier to hit them when the game's out of reach. Clingan able to hit both free throws there. And then you did have a layup from RJ Davis. So it's 87-76, 11-point game. Carolina playing full court pressure. They get the ball over the timeline. Will Carolina foul or will they play this out? Because to me, the only way Carolina has a shot is if they keep fouling, because they're out of time. It doesn't look like Carolina's going to foul. Looks like they're going to concede this game. 55 seconds left. Cam Spencer with the ball. Kicks to Newton. Almost a steal by RJ Davis, but it didn't happen. 50 seconds left. 45 seconds left. Spencer for three. It's off the mark. And Carolina almost gets the board. Bacot, he gets it, and a foul on Solomon Ball. Not a good foul. I know UConn, they're scrapping for the ball, trying to make Dan Hurley happy and proud, the fact that they're playing hard all the way to the final whistle, but you can't foul there. It's not a smart foul. You got a double-digit lead. You do not want to give any free throws, any points to the Tar Heels. But still, even though UConn, they're not a perfect team yet. No team's perfect, especially at this point in the season. But UConn definitely is showing the college basketball world that they have a lot of talent. They got good players at every position. The real MVP is asking, did Villanova win today? That's a good question. Let me go check the college basketball schedule. They're not ranked in the top 25 anymore, so you can't look, at the top of the screen where, where they have the scores. They only have the top 25 scores, so you have to go all the way down through the schedule. Villanova, they lost. They actually lost the real to Kansas State 72-71 in overtime. That was a barn burner. Kansas State with Arthur Kaluma, the Creighton transfer. They were able to knock off Villanova 72-71. It's crazy. Villanova got in the top 25. They got a big win earlier in the year, but they're starting to slip again. They've lost 3 in a row, I think. and now they're out of the poll. And they even had an upset loss in there as well to a team that they should have beat. So Villanova, they got some things to work on in Kyle Neptune's season. Villanova's got to have the weirdest resume in all of basketball for sure, because they got a couple good wins and they got a couple of really bad losses. So be interesting to see how they can dig themselves out of that hole. UConn missed some free throws, balls off of Cam Spencer, Carolina basketball, 29 seconds left, down 11. I mean, it would take a miracle for Carolina to be able to come back from an 11-point deficit in 29 seconds. We've seen stranger things, though, in college basketball, but it looks like UConn's walking out of MSG with a win in the Jimmy V Classic. Missed three from R.J. Davis. Seth Trimble got the offensive rebound. He's off the mark. Tristan Newton with the board, and that's your ball game. UConn decides not to go for the victory slam dunk. Smart decision there by them. Do not want to irritate anybody with a celebration dunk. Just dribble it out and get out of MSG with a win. The UConn Huskies, the 5th-ranked Huskies, who won the title last year, looking for another one. They're looking like a title contender as of now with an 87-76 win over the North Carolina Tar Heels. First win versus a ranked North Carolina team in UConn history. Entering tonight, they were 0-4. So that's a massive win for one of the newest Blue Bloods. Talk about the older Blue Bloods: Kentucky, Carolina, Duke, Kansas, Indiana, UCLA. Now UConn's got 5 titles. Last 25 years, they've been a great program under Jim Calhoun, and now Dan Hurley is continuing that, getting the Huskies back to the top. I don't know if they'll be able to win the title this year. It's so far out, too early to tell, but this is looking like a great team. That's a big win. Beating North Carolina in the Jimmy V Classic, a great game for a great cause for the legendary Jim Valvano. Fight against cancer, that's a big deal. Awesome. Hopefully more people will be able to survive that dreadful disease in the future. It's terrible. Great cause and a fantastic game. North Carolina just could not keep up with UConn throughout the entirety of the game. But thanks to everyone for being here. Like the stream down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Share the stream out on social media. But most importantly, I appreciate all you guys for being here. You guys are the best. Thanks for stopping by The Real. Thanks for stopping by Steven, RC, Jackson, all of you guys earlier. It was a blast. Great top 10 matchup. Really good game. Maybe not as great of a game as that Kansas-Kentucky game earlier in the year. That was a fantastic game, but this was a great game as well. UConn showing they're definitely a legitimate title contender this year. Carolina, some things to work on, but they definitely look like a team that's going to be able to make the NCAA tournament. They continue on the trajectory that they're at and continue to improve. But thanks for being everybody. I will be back for more college basketball streams in the future this season. It's going to be a lot of fun. It looks like it's going to be a great college basketball season. Thanks for being here, everybody.